Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. The chairman of the board, David Reed, is here today. Hello, David Reed.
Good afternoon.
So I'm just watching the North Carolina-Arizona Super Regional. I just want everybody to know out there, North Carolina, by the way, won 18-2. And this morning, I was doing Sirius XM CMA Fest stuff with Caroline, and I was chanting throughout the show, ACC, ACC, as North Carolina, just lowered the boom on Arizona in the first one. Louisville plays Miami in the second game, and I will be keeping an eye, obviously, on that one. But another thing happened today. While I was sitting up there in the Airstream, which basically ESPN has this bus, and it's like an open bus, kind of like a food truck kind of thing. And that's what Caroline and I have been hosting on Sirius XM College Sports Radio this week. That's what we've been doing from CMA Fest, is this ESPN Airstream, but there's like a set on this bus. And I bring that up because I'm sitting there and I see on my phone that the Dallas Stars have fired head coach Peter DeBoer. And I looked at Caroline. We were in a commercial break, and I looked at her, and I just said one thing to her. I want him. I want him. And I want the Nashville Predators to go get Peter DeBoer. This is no disrespect to Andrew Burnett, who is the current coach. And I know the Predators are not going to hire Peter DeBoer, but I would. And here's why. Because Peter DeBoer is probably one of the 4 or 5 best coaches in the entire NHL, period. In fact, I think it's closer to him being the best coach in the NHL than it is to him maybe being the 5th best head coach in the NHL. Peter DeBoer was in the Western Conference Final in 2016, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2023, 2024, 2025. Did you hear that? That's 7 trips to the conference final. As a franchise, the Predators have been to the Western Conference Final once in 2017. Now, I was not in favor when the season ended. I was not in favor of retaining Andrew Burnett simply because I thought something needed to change after last season. And while I am accepting that, hey, the real juice of whether or not this is going to work, talking about the big picture with Barry Trotz, is going to be based upon the young guys that are still developing. When it came to the coach, clearly something was missing. And throughout the course of the year, whether it was the 0-5 start or the constant losing streaks throughout the point of the year, the Predators never seemed to really fully take to their head coach. There were no signs that it was going to work out. So with that being said, it wasn't so much of a, oh my God, he's got to go, as much as it was a, after this past season, I think I changed something and I can't fire the players, so I'll fire the coach. And today I'm saying I'd fire the coach, not because it didn't work last year, not because I'm not a huge Burnett, but I would say it because the alternative, Peter DeBoer, is so much better. Now, 2 people have already said to me, and these are not connected to the Predators, but they know the landscape. 2 people have already said to me, well, if the Predators get off to a bad start, then they could replace Burnett with Peter DeBoer. And I'm like, no. You got to do it now. You got to do it today. You got to do it before somebody else who has high expectations for their hockey club stinks at the beginning of the season and fires their coach, and then they turn around and hire Peter DeBoer. You can't wait till the beginning of next year. That's like the St. Louis Blues this past year. Jim Montgomery got off to a bad start in Boston, and the Blues said, screw it, fire our coach, go get Jim Montgomery, and they ended up in the playoffs. So if you're the Predators, this is not a, well, let's see how the first 2 weeks of the season goes. No, You make the move today. You reach out to Peter DeBoer and you show him, you tell him, you make sure he knows. I want him. And then you have to pay him. Now, I don't want this to be misconstrued as Jared Stillman goes after Andrew Burnett today. Because this morning, after I was on Robbie and Rexford, I put together the whole show grid in place. And firing the hockey coach was not on the list. So it wasn't as if I woke up this morning and said, let's talk about firing Andrew Burnett. Because, again, this may be different for you, but I was not expecting, I was not planning, I was not thinking that this great coach, Peter DeBoer, would become available the way that he has. And when you have the opportunity to hire a great coach, and I'm not talking about somebody who could be a great coach. I'm not somebody who's shown a sign that, he might be a pretty good coach. I think there's something there. I'm talking about a great coach. You take it. You don't get many of these opportunities. If you start off 3-9 and decide after the first 3 weeks of the season next year, you want to fire Andrew Burnett, by that point in time, there could be a successful coach who's already, for a team this past year that's got off to a bad start, who's already fired their coach and hired Peter DeBoer. I don't want that. And I'll never forget, Bruce Cassidy got let go in Boston at the end of 2022. And I'd watched Bruce Cassidy. I'm like, Bruce Cassidy is a great coach. Go get Bruce Cassidy. And everyone, no, can't do that because we got John Hines, Jared. Well, we got to roll with John Hines. Give him another chance. And a year later, John Hines was fired and Bruce Cassidy was hoisting the cup. Peter DeBoer wins. Period. And it's not like the Predators have had this opportunity before. I should say it's not like they haven't. They had the opportunity when they fired Peter Laviolette and they were trying to turn the season around and get this thing back on the tracks. Peter DeBoer was sitting out there in free agency. They chose John Hines. Enough with shopping the discount rack. Enough with trying to find the diamond in the rough. Go get the winner. Peter DeBoer wins, period. And I know Barry Trotz thinks that Andrew Burnett is a good young coach, but Peter DeBoer is a great middle-aged coach. And I'll take a great middle-aged coach over a potential good young coach who, again, and I don't say this to be rude, I think lost the room last year. And then when it comes to DeBoer, you have to think, why did he get fired in Dallas? To me, this is very simple. He got fired in Dallas because he threw the goalie under the bus. But Peter DeBoer has won with a veteran roster in Vegas, with a young-ish developing roster, Dallas, and with a team right there in the middle of the pack in San Jose. He's never won the cup, but he has coached in the cup final. And you know who's never won the cup? Andrew Burnett. So when it comes to the opportunity that, again, I am not stunned. Like, I wasn't sitting up there and seeing the reports. I think it was Elliot that broke the news. I didn't see the report that Peter DeBoer was out and think, oh my God, I can't believe it. How could they? Because I saw what went down in Game 5 of the Western Conference Final. And I saw the way that DeBoer reacted when it came to Ottinger. These head coaches, when it comes to their goalies, it's like talking about the quarterback. You pull the goalie and you ask the coach, you pulled the goalie. Why did you do that? And the coach's response is always the same. Well, we just weren't playing well, and I didn't want to burn the timeout, and I decided to go with Johnny just to see if that would give us a spark, but we are 100% behind our goalie. We are 100% behind Jake Ottinger. DeBoer didn't do that. DeBoer's a prickly guy. And I got to say, I think if anyone's going to piss him off if he becomes the head coach of the Nashville Predators, I think it's probably me. And I'm okay with that. Because I believe that Peter DeBoer is one of the best coaches in the entire NHL. Just a couple of weeks ago, Adam Vingan and I were texting each other. This was on a weekend, and we were texting one another about the best coaches in the NHL. And we talked about Paul Maurice and all the success that he had in Winnipeg and how good they've been in Florida. We talked about Rob Brind'Amour, who I think Brind'Amour is a great coach in Carolina. But the discussion was DeBoer. And Adam Vingan talked to Peter DeBoer, and this was in a story at The Athletic at the time, so I'm not breaking any confidence or any news. He talked to Peter DeBoer when the Predators' job was open, and they hired John Hines, and DeBoer said at the time something along the lines of, it's not me who's getting hired as the coach, but that's a good job. And it wasn't like Adam Vingan was sitting there saying, oh, no, Peter DeBoer, he can't coach. So bring me Peter DeBoer. Here is the chance. To be honest with you, I think Peter DeBoer might be the second best coach in the NHL behind John Cooper. And I mean that. So here's your chance. Bring me Peter DeBoer. Bring me the winning coach to the Nashville Predators. This was unexpected news. Again, not shocking news, but it was unexpected news today. And if I owned the team, we'd be having a top-to-bottom discussion inside the organization today about Peter DeBoer. And it'd be hard for me to hear Barry Trotz out if Barry Trotz didn't want to go along with this. It'd be hard for Barry Trotz. He'd really have to come up with something better than, I think Andrew is a good young coach. He'd have to really sell me on why I'm not hiring Peter DeBoer today. And if that's the case, then Andrew Burnett's collateral damage. And I hate to say it, but it's business. So bring me Peter DeBoer. Why? Because I want him. I want him. They won't do it, but they should. 615-737-1025. That's how we're starting today. 615-737-1025. We're not waiting. We're not waiting on Peter DeBoer. We should not wait on Peter DeBoer. We should not wait for Andrew Burnett to get off to a bad start. Should try to have a good season next year. So you got to make the move today. 615-737-1025 here on the program. If you want to weigh in, that's 615-737-1025. We will get to your phones on this. This is how we are starting. Peter DeBoer out in Dallas. Jared wants him in Nashville today, not at the beginning of next season. I'm not waiting. I'm not letting somebody else hire him today. 615-737-1025 here on our program. That's 615-737-1025. Plus, the one thing that Peter DeBoer can get the Predators out of, or at least gives the Predators a chance of getting out of. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. Okay, Peter DeBoer got fired. That was TSN right there in Canada. And Peter DeBoer got fired because he got into it with Jake Ottinger. And you know what happened? He benched Ottinger in the Western Conference Final. Then after the game, threw Ottinger under the bus. Then when they had the end of the year press conferences continue. Sounds to me like he feels a lot like I do about UC Soros when it comes to Jake Ottinger, which is another reason why I want the Predators to hire Peter DeBoer to be their head coach. Again, very rarely does a coach of this caliber come free. And again, this guy every year makes it to the Western Conference Final. I'd like to have him prove me wrong that he can't make the Western Conference Final with the Predators, then try to give Andrew Burnett another shot to try to make it. But here's the other thing that hiring Peter DeBoer does. I think it gives the Predators an out with this disastrous UC Soros contract that is about to kick in about 25 days. Now, there may not be anybody out there that wants to take on the UC Soros contract, and I understand that. But you've got less than a month until UC Soros, who freaking stunk last year, gets a full no move. And at that point, the Predators are stuck with Soros, and there's nothing they can do about it. And again, there still may not be anything they can do about it, but DeBoer gives you the opportunity to look elsewhere. You know, Adam Vingan has told me that the Predators can't move Soros because if they do that, then other players will not want to sign here because the Predators signed Soros to an extension and then a year later changed their mind, and that would look bad. And I don't totally believe that because money talks. But if you were to decide to get out of Soros because you hired a new coach, you could use the new coach as the excuse. You could use Peter DeBoer's vision as a reason that you're moving off of UC Soros. Well, he doesn't fit with what the new coach wants to do here. And then you have to put yourself in Soros' shoes. And Soros is sitting there saying, well, I know Jake Ottinger is a better goalie than me. And Jake Ottinger just started a new contract. And Peter DeBoer has already gone to war with him. And if he's going to go to war with Jake Ottinger, he's definitely going to go to war with me. So I think the biggest problem they have, big picture, or I should say probably like, at the coaching level, the biggest problem they have is this goalie contract and the fact that the last year Andrew Burnett could not get these veteran players to work together. And now I've got a guy who I can hire to be the head coach in Peter DeBoer, who's got experience getting veterans to play well and to play at a legitimate cup contending level. And I got a guy who's not going to take any nonsense from the goalie. I got a guy that's going to quit making excuses for the goalie. Even if it costs him his job, he doesn't care. He's not going to make excuses for the goalie. All the Predators do is sit around and make excuses for the goalie. That was the entire season. Hey, Soros stinks right now. What do we make of it? Well, it's really the reason the goalie stinks is because they're not playing well in front of him. Well, if playing well in front of him is so important, why am I paying the goalie so much money? Just go get any Scarbini goalie. The Maple Leafs had a goalie, Anthony Stolars, who made like $2.5 million this past year. That's the kind of goalie I believe in. These goalies are fickle. They're like closers in baseball. You don't commit to a guy unless he's Mariano freaking Rivera. So, of all the reasons to bring in Peter DeBoer, I think another reason that I like the idea of bringing in Peter DeBoer is he gets you out. Well, I wouldn't say he gets you for sure out of the Soros deal, but he gives you a shot to get out of the Soros deal. And that's all I'm looking for right now. And here's what drives me crazy. And this is the Predator way through and through. And it is the idea that, well, it doesn't make sense for us to bring in Peter DeBoer to be the coach. Why? Well, we've already decided we're going to bring back Andrew Burnett. That's why. Well, but when you decided to bring back Andrew Burnett, Peter DeBoer was not available to be hired. You know as well as I do that if a team starts off poorly next year, they fire the coach early on in the season, whatever job in the league that may be, I believe is probably going to look like a better job than the Predators' job. So he's going to take that job over taking this job. And then it's like, well, we're going to give the goalie another chance. He's been the starting goalie for 5 years, and he has not won anything. Why do we have to keep giving the goalie chances? Why do we have to keep making excuses for the goalie? Why do we have to? No, this is the right guy for the job. This is the guy. And I know Bill Haslam. I'm not pocket watching. I know he's got the money. I know he's got the ability to move on from Burnett and to hire DeBoer. And I'm not one of these guys that thinks that DeBoer is going to be your coach for forever. I'm not firing Andrew Burnett for the next 15 years. I'm firing Andrew Burnett for the next 5 because Peter DeBoer, like all these other coaches in the league, they get in the room, they make an impact, and eventually they lose the room. And when you lose the room in hockey, you have to go. And that's just how it is. There's no difference than Laviolette, but would you not take the Laviolette years back? I'd love to have the Laviolette years back. So I'm just telling you right now, Peter DeBoer's out there, and they have got to do this. They're not going to do it, but they need to. And the whole not doing it, no, we're happy with the coach we have. How can you be happy with the coach you had after the season you had last year? 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. So Adam Vingan just sent me a text that I am going to get to on the other side, which is as I'm talking about solving the Soros problem, and this is on the grid, he said, could Peter DeBoer also solve the Jonathan Marchessault problem? Because Peter DeBoer coached Jonathan Marchessault in Vegas. Well, we'll get to that next. 615-737-1025 on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. That's 615-737-1025. Tune in to 94.9 The Fan tonight as the Sounds take on Gwinnett at First Horizon Park. Pregame 6:20, first pitch 6:35. Coverage also available on the Game Nashville app and at theGameNashville.com. Sounds Baseball on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks and by Family Leisure. There you go. That was Jonathan Marchessault. And that was kind of the thing Marchessault said on Locker Cleanout Day that really set this Andrew Burnett, is he coming back, rumor mill ablaze. You know, I guaranteed at the end of the year that Andrew Burnett was coming back, so much so that when Barry Trotz came on the show for his last weekly appearance during the season, I said to Barry Trotz, I go, I'm telling you, I think you're going to keep the coach because the Predator way is to be more loyal than not when it comes to the coach, and that you're going to give him another shot, and that 95% of the time in this league with a team that had the expectations that they had, the coach would not bear the brunt of it. And Barry Trotz did not deny that when he got up there. And then Marchessault made those comments. Burnett had his end of the year press conference. Robbie Stanley, who asked that question to Marchessault, Robbie told me that day, he goes, I walked into that thinking Burnett was coming back. I walked out of it thinking it's 50-50 and there's a good chance he's getting fired. And it took Barry Trotz a while, like a week and a half, before Barry Trotz got with the media and basically said, yeah, Andrew Burnett's coming back next season. So when it comes to adding Peter DeBoer, who, again, was fired today by the Dallas Stars, a winner, 3 straight Western Conference final appearances. All this guy does is go to the Western Conference final. Again, he went in 2016 when he won the Western Conference. He went in 2019. He went in 2020. He went in 2021. He went in 2023. He went in 2024. He went in 2025. When you have the opportunity to get that guy, you go get that guy. And then the question is Marchessault. Because Adam Vingan said, do you think that Peter DeBoer could solve the Jonathan Marchessault problem that clearly the Predators have? When I heard the Marchessault comments, the ones we just played there, where he was like, well, I think we should take a page out of the good team's books. I think that we should do what the other coach that I used to play for does. Not this coach. I said, this isn't going to work. Now, I believe that the Predators should kind of embrace the friction between Burnett and Marchessault instead of, it's coach versus player, and there's not enough space for the hombres in here, so one has to go. I figured that the Predators would get rid of Marchessault because that's kind of the way the Predators are. Oh, this guy rocks the boat. Oh, no, doesn't work with us. But I thought, you know what? Maybe that conflict will be good. But I thought that before I thought I could get Peter DeBoer. Now I can get Peter DeBoer, and that solves the Marchessault problem because Marchessault has played for Peter DeBoer. Vingan texted me the stats when it came to, this is on average, per 82 games, with Peter DeBoer as his head coach, Jonathan Marchessault averages 30 goals and 38.8 assists. 30 goals, 40 assists with DeBoer as the coach. I absolutely think that DeBoer would give you a shot at solving your Jonathan Marchessault problem. And Peter DeBoer has a track record. Andrew Burnett does not. Peter DeBoer has a track record of taking teams with veteran established players, guys like Mark Stone, guys like Jack Eichel, guys like, again, Vegas, Jonathan Marchessault, and making something out of it. Andrew Burnett doesn't have that. All Andrew Burnett has is that 1 year with the Florida Panthers where they won the President's Trophy and he got fired as the interim head coach. That's all he's got. So, yes, again, I talked to somebody when they played Toronto in March, and I pulled somebody aside, somebody that knows hockey. Again, it was Toronto. There were a lot of people in town. I pulled somebody aside. I said, do they need to fire the coach? And I was expecting no, Jared, it just was one of those years. It just was odd. It just was. And this person, again, somebody who I think would know, looked at me and said, you got to do something. Because for whatever reason, it's either the coach or the players, but somebody's not getting through to somebody. And you can't fire the players. Marchessault has a full no move. Can't fire him. Forsberg has a full no move. Yossi has a full no move. Saros is about to have a full no move. I don't know the details with Stamkos and Shea, but I bet they probably have full no moves. Can't fire the players. So that's when you fire the coach. 615-737-1025. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Sean on a Fireball Hot Take Friday says, I wanted Peter DeBoer after the Sharks let him go, and instead the Predators got John Hines. You know what's crazy? I actually brought this up the other day on the radio. This might have been yesterday that I brought this up. I can't even remember. But years and years and years ago, Jeff Fisher was the head coach of the LA Rams. And Jeff Fisher and Eric Dickerson got into it, and it was a big brouhaha, and Eric Dickerson came out and said Jeff Fisher banned him from the sideline, and Snoop Dogg went nuts about how dare this coach treat Eric Dickerson that way. So, of course, they put Snoop Dogg on the show with Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless, and Snoop Dogg was sitting there, and they were talking about Brian Billick, and he said, well, no one wants to hire him because he knows how to win. They like coaches. This is what Snoop Dogg said. They like coaches that like to lose. Said like Marvin Lewis. He should have been gone. But they just kept giving Marvin Lewis chance after chance after chance. And sometimes when it comes to these guys who win, it's like teams don't want them because they'd rather hire the guy who loses. John Hines was a sucky coach. John Hines is never going to win a playoff series in his career. But it's like, no, we had to hire him. No, can't fire Bruce Cassidy because we got to keep John Hines around here. And I don't want to be addicted to the losing coaches. I want the winning coaches. Andrew says, if Peter DeBoer goes to a non-playoff team and takes them to the playoffs in 2026, and the Preds miss it again with Andrew Burnett, I will officially be out on Barry Trotz. I can't disagree with that. And again, this is coming from somebody who believes that Barry Trotz's job should really be evaluated by what happens with this young wave of prospects, with Mullendijk and Wood and Kemmel and Surin and Stiga and the guys they've drafted the last couple of years and traded for the last couple of years, and the guy they're going to draft at the end of this month, who they're going to use the 5th overall pick on. Like, that's where I really feel, if you want to be fair, I feel that's where you should evaluate Barry Trotz. At the same time, if Barry Trotz as a manager is not able to make the decision to move on from a coach who, again, I think has lost the room. I do. And we all knew Barry Trotz was going to be loyal to coaches because Barry Trotz was a coach who was shown loyalty and in other places has not been shown loyalty. So you knew Barry was going to be loyal to the coach. I get it. But if you've got Peter DeBoer staring you down in the face and you can go get Peter DeBoer, and this is a league, Dan Muse just got hired to be head coach of the Penguins. Talk about a league that likes to lose. You know, I had somebody say to me the other day when Dan Muse got hired in Pittsburgh that was like, I like Dan Muse, but I didn't see, to me, he's not head coaching material. He's going to be coaching Sidney Crosby. So while all these teams can experiment on all these guys, you can go get a proven winner. You know, it's like Brian Callahan. It's one thing if I'm stuck with Brian Callahan, but if Sean McVay's out there, you go get Sean McVay. You go get Kyle Shanahan. And I know Shanahan has his flaws, but you go get him. Jonathan says, Jared, I know sports topics are right now, and you have to fill a show, but there's 0% chance that Bill Haslam is going to fire Burnett and having a new coach right now. It makes absolutely no sense. I agree with your takes 90% of the time, but I cannot get behind this one. So here's my question, though, with this text, which again says they're not going to fire Burnett. They're not going to hire DeBoer. So I can't get on board with this. Are you saying this because you believe that the Predators are better off with Andrew Burnett and they're better off on the path they're on now than saying, okay, I can't get on board with this because I don't think they're going to do it? Because I agree with you. They're not going to do it. They are not going to hire Peter DeBoer to be their coach. It's just not in their blood. It's just not the way the Predators do business. to come out and say, hey, we're going to keep Andrew Burnett. We believe in Andrew Burnett, so we're going to roll with him. And then say, oh, wait a minute, we can go get him? Bye. It's just not how the Predators do business. It's not. If this were the way the Predators did business, the Vegas way that Marchessault loves so much, what they would have done is they would have fired Burnett 6 games into the season and hired Jim Montgomery. That's what would have happened. But there's a difference between what's going to happen and what should happen. And I'm telling you what should happen. What should happen is the Predators should know right now, would Peter DeBoer take the job if we offer him the job? If the answer is yes, get Andrew Burnett on the phone. We'll get him out of here. We'll give him his package, everything else. He'll keep his health care for a while, but time to move on. If you've put out the feelers and DeBoer's like, I ain't going to that place, then okay, I can understand it. But again, I think the Predators on Predator Island are happy. They think, oh, no, we're going to work this out as a group. We're going to be a part of the solution. And I'm like, you've got a great coach out there. He's a great coach. Go get the great coach for the next 5 years. Go get the great coach. And I've been saying this too when it comes to the Dallas Stars with DeBoer as the coach. You know what? I want to pick this up. I'm just going to keep going. We'll take your phones, more of them. 615-737-1025. But there's something that happened in Dallas that just does not happen here. We'll get to it next. Stillman & Company, 1025, 106 for the game. That is Jim Nill, the general manager of the Dallas Stars. Boy, is it just me, or when I heard that cut the first time, I thought I was listening to David Poyle. And I mean that with all due respect, but Jim Nill sitting there like, well, comfortable with the decision. He's a great coach. We love him. He handled it great, but we're moving on. And that's fine. That's your business. Now, here's one thing that happened in Dallas that does not happen here. The development of young players. So with the Dallas Stars, and I have bitched, and I mean really complained, endlessly about the fact that the Dallas Stars keep bringing up young players from the AHL, and they keep making a difference in the NHL. Whereas with the Predators, all we talk about it, the Admirals are in game 3. The Admirals in the playoffs. This matters. And I'm like, it really doesn't matter that much. And so for every Maverick Bourque and Wyatt Johnston and Logan Stankoven, who they traded in order to get Mikko Rantanen, like for all of those guys, Peter DeBoer must be doing something right. Miro Heiskanen. Now, Heiskanen was a good player before he got there. Rope Hintz was a good player before he got there. But again, those guys didn't get worse under Peter DeBoer. Thomas Harley's on Team Canada now. Again, the Predators, for whatever reason, either they're drafting guys that aren't that good or they're not developing them. And one of the problems the Predators have had, whether the coach was Peter Laviolette, John Hines, or Andrew Burnett, is they've had this problem with guys leaving here and going somewhere else and immediately playing better. And guess who did that? The Dallas Stars. Mikael Granlund. Mikael Granlund freaking stunk when he was on the Predators. Granlund is on the first line right now for the Dallas Stars. Matt Duchene. We remember Matt Duchene. Second line for the Dallas Stars. Colin freaking Blackwell is a difference maker, maybe a stretch, but he is a legitimate contributor for the Dallas Stars. They didn't get any of that here. Did not get any of that here. So I'm just saying, they got all these young guys that they're going to bring up from Milwaukee. They've already brought a couple of them up. Evangelista's been up. Svechkov's been up. LaRue's been up. They're going to probably bring a couple more next year. Mullendijk is probably going to be here. Somebody told me, and I actually thought this was a good point. You know me, I love Peter Laviolette. I think Peter Laviolette's a great coach. Somebody told me, they said, you got to be careful with a coach like Laviolette. Because if you're trying to develop Tanner Mullendijk and you've got Laviolette as the coach, Laviolette might ruin that kind of player. And there is truth to that. DeBoer doesn't ruin those players. DeBoer doesn't ruin the young guys. He develops them. Or at least is a part of a program where they develop them, which is more than I can say for what's going on here. So again, I know it's not going to happen. But man, when I saw this today and I saw that the Dallas Stars, and I know why they did it because of the Jake Ottinger stuff. And I thought that the way DeBoer handled it, like there's a reason why coaches don't throw quarterbacks and goalies under the bus. That's why. My guess is, and I know Jim Nill in his press conference said that it was part of the reason the Ottinger stuff was part of the reason that they got rid of DeBoer, but wasn't the total reason. It was the reason. Because once you do that, what DeBoer did, there's no coming back. One of you has to go, and they're not going to get rid of the goalie who signed to an 8-year contract. That said, he's a winner. And I can't say that for what they've got right now. I asked Vingan, I said, if you saw a tweet right now, hypothetically, from Elliot Friedman that said, Predators fire Andrew Burnett, hire Peter DeBoer, how shocked would you be? And he said he'd be shocked because historically, this is not what the Predators do. Well, again, if you want a different result, maybe doing things differently than what you historically do, maybe that'll work. I mean, how many people thought the Panthers were crazy when they fired Andrew Burnett to go get Paul Maurice after they won the President's Trophy? I'd say it's working out for them. Joel says, very similar to your Sam Darnold to the Titans take. Pure fantasy sports talk radio for hours to no avail. But I do guess it's somewhat funny. I mean, again, I haven't heard anybody that said, other than the fact that we know the Predators won't do it, I have not seen a single text or a single tweet. I mean, even the YouTube chat, I've kind of just looked around a little bit. Again, I haven't, go gone so far down the rabbit hole of the YouTube chat. But I haven't seen anyone that's like, oh, don't get Peter DeBoer because that would be a bad idea for the team. That would be a bad idea to get DeBoer at coach. Well, we don't need DeBoer. We've got Andrew Burnett. I don't see anybody saying that. Again, not to be mean, just telling the truth. RC goes higher. Go hire Peter DeBoer now. Agreed. Mike in Lebanon says apparently the Stars players were furious with DeBoer for throwing Ottinger under the bus. Again, these coaches in the NHL have a shelf life. And once you lose the room, you have to go. And again, I've said that Sean Henry came on the show. And I said to Sean Henry, I think Burnett has lost the room. I mean, March just so said what he said. It's going to happen. And if DeBoer losing the room is what opens the door for you to hire him and you get this great coach, so be it. But again, this is the NHL. Why one team fires their coach unless it's something crazy doesn't really affect me one way or another. All these guys get fired anyways. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. There is some news out of Chicago that I think is a big deal, especially if you want a baseball team. We'll get to that coming up next. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number if you want to weigh in. Do not miss out on Nashville's best deals. Great offers for 312 Pizza, Beach Bend Amusement Park and Splash Lagoon Water Park, Central Barbecue, Fog Street Lawn Club, and more. Get them now while supplies last at theGameNashville.com/deals. Company 1025, 1063 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. So some news that came out yesterday right before we jumped on air, and I did have it as something we could talk about, but we had the TD Power Hour and everything else. You know, I wanted to keep it in the back pocket. Was this Chicago White Sox ownership deal that all of a sudden came out. Now, I have to be completely honest with everybody here. I'm not sure I've done a single topic on the Chicago White Sox in my entire life in terms of talk radio and how that is concerned. But I do think this is a big deal. So Justin Ishbia, whose brother Matt Ishbia, by the way, is the owner of the Phoenix Suns. Justin Ishbia has made an agreement with Jerry Reinsdorf to eventually buy the Chicago White Sox. I'm reading from an article in the Tennessean about this, but Justin Ishbia has come to a long-term ownership agreement to purchase Jerry Reinsdorf's majority stake in the team between 2029 and 2033. After the 2034 season, Ishbia will have the option to acquire controlling interest, though there is no guarantee that any of those transactions will occur, according to the Tennessean. Reinsdorf is 89 years old. Now, Jerry Reinsdorf, for the last couple of years, has been trying with the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois in order to get a new stadium built for the White Sox. And there's a couple of things at play here. Number one, this isn't the first time that Jerry Reinsdorf has gone all in on a negotiation with the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois. The reason the Tampa Bay Rays exist is because Jerry Reinsdorf was going to bring the White Sox to Tampa in the early 90s, and at the last second, and if you read some of the reporting, it sounds like it was even after the clock on the deadline had passed, at the last second, they agreed to a new stadium, which would become the new Comiskey Park. I don't know what it's called now. It's a crappy stadium, but it's where the White Sox play, and Jerry Reinsdorf wants out. The second thing is, Jerry Reinsdorf wanted this nice piece of property, apparently in Chicago. I am not an expert on the Chicago neighborhoods. I have positioned this topic at 3 o'clock because Corey Curtis, who is an expert and is from Chicago, is going to join us in just a bit. But apparently there was a big parcel of land that Jerry Reinsdorf wanted to build the next White Sox stadium on. And apparently that parcel of land was purchased 2 days ago by the Chicago Fire, the MLS team. So the MLS team is going to take the parcel of land that Jerry Reinsdorf wanted. Apparently, they even had mock-ups of what the new White Sox stadium would look like on this parcel of land. And let's not forget, when the winter meetings were here a couple of years ago, Jerry Reinsdorf was seen with Mayor Freddie O'Connell in what I thought was a Jerry Reinsdorf is calling Axios right now and saying, hey, by the way, Axios, I'm going to be meeting with the Nashville mayor. Be sure to write it so the people of Chicago worry about it. But then there's this move. There are moves when it comes to stadium deals and it comes to team relocations. There are moves that signal whether or not something is just leverage in a negotiation or whether or not something is for real. And when it comes to this news, Justin Ishbia is the managing partner of Shore Capital. I have never heard of Shore Capital in my life until this morning. But he is the managing partner, and Shore Capital has offices in 2 cities, Chicago, and you want to guess the other one, David Reed?
Brentwood.
Close.
Smyrna.
Close.
Nashville.
Ding, 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 ding. This is a guy who graduated from Vanderbilt Law School. This is a threat if I have ever seen it. And for years, there's been this group called the Nashville Stars. And I don't want to crap on them because I don't want to start any fights today. But for about 6 or 7 years, this Nashville Stars group that has a board of directors and has investors and has logos and has baseball bats and jerseys and everything else, about once a year, they get somebody to write about them at ESPN.com. They'll send out Dave Stewart or Tony La Russa or Dave Dombrowski or somebody that they've hired who will go out there and tell people about, Nashville be great for Major League Baseball. And then my phone blows up because the New York Times writes a story about Dave Stewart bringing baseball to Nashville, or because there's some sort of article at ESPN.com about them bringing baseball to Nashville. And every time this has come up, I've said, who's going to pay for it? You need a stadium. Who's going to pay for it? You need a team. Who's going to pay for it? They came out in 2020 and they said, we're going to have full minority ownership or majority minority ownership. And again, I said, well, that's great. But unless you've got Oprah sitting there willing to buy a team, I don't know how you can guarantee what kind of ownership you're going to have. And Justin Ishbia is a minority owner of Nashville SC. And I'm going to guess that he actually has a real stake in it because unlike Derrick Henry, Philip Forsberg, and those guys, this dude's got real money. I mean, real money. So over the last 10 years, because it was at the All-Star game in 2015 that Rob Manfred mentioned Nashville as a possible relocation destination for baseball or a possible expansion destination for baseball. He said it on Fox. Ever since then, Nashville has consistently come up whenever there have been talks about expansion or whenever there have been talks about relocation. And teams have used Nashville as a bargaining chip. The Baltimore Orioles used Nashville as a bargaining chip. The Tampa Bay Rays haven't totally used Nashville as a bargaining chip, but they haven't not used it. And the Chicago White Sox for the last couple of years have used Nashville as a bargaining chip for a Major League Baseball team. And for the last couple of years, I have said, that's just old man Jerry Reinsdorf, who has the history of being notoriously cheap. This is the guy that didn't want to pay Michael Jordan. Jerry Reinsdorf is just using Nashville the same way he used Tampa in order to get a new stadium for the White Sox. But once you start signing agreements that allow other dudes that are venture capitalists that went to Vanderbilt, that are part owners in Nashville SC, once you start doing that, where now there is pen to paper, and there is a possibility that this guy, probably more likely than not, is going to eventually become the owner of the Chicago White Sox, well, that answers my number one question. Who's going to pay for this? The answer? This guy. And again, these guys have money. They've bought the Phoenix Suns. They're invested in all kinds of stuff. Capital partners, venture capitalism, everything else. These dudes have money. And they've got ties to Nashville. And so, again, I don't know the answer. Where are you going to put the stadium? Who's going to pay for all of the stadium? How are they going to do that? And for the most part, I think those issues are the ones that have got to get figured out before we can even begin to have the discussion of Major League Baseball in Nashville, before we even get to the part where the Sounds technically own the baseball rights in the city of Nashville, and those would have to be purchased and everything else. And I've usually said, come to me with all the information, come to me with who's going to pay for it, and then we can talk. Well, for the first time in 10 years, we now have the answer of who's going to pay for it. Who's going to own the team? If it's the case, it's this guy, Justin Ishbia. I'm not saying we're getting a Major League Baseball team. I'm not going to be like Dave Stewart and go do a tour and make promises that I absolutely have no ability to keep. But this is the closest I've felt about this being real. And this is coming from somebody who has talked to people at Major League Baseball about this. This is the closest I have felt to this being real in a long long time. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Corey Curtis, News 2, will join us. I want Corey's thoughts on this. Corey is from Chicago. He is a true blue Cubs fan, but he knows about the neighborhoods. He knows about the Reinsdorfs. He knows about what kind of threat this is. I want Corey Curtis's thoughts. So we'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, again, the big news out of Chicago is that Justin Ishbia, a minority owner in Nashville SC, who, again, his brother owns the Phoenix Suns, they got money. And he is a venture capitalist. He went to Vanderbilt Law. He's got an office here in Nashville. And he has agreed to purchase the majority stake of the Chicago White Sox at some point between 2029 and 2033. And what does that mean? Well, it means that now if you have the question of if they have a team in Nashville, who's going to pay for it? The answer, I think it's this guy. Corey Curtis, News 2, joins us now on the program. Corey, we positioned this segment around you being on the program simply because you know the lay of the land in Chicago better than most of us. So I want to know yesterday when you saw this headline and you learned more about Justin Ishbia and about his ties to the Nashville community, what did you make of it? Do you think this is a negotiating tactic for Reinsdorf and the Sox to get a new stadium in Chicago, or do you think now we're entering stage 2 here?
Well, first off, Jerry Reinsdorf has always tried to hold the city of Chicago hostage to get what he wants. So, yes, that is my first thought. He is trying to put more cards on the table to make his hand look stronger that he could move to Nashville. Baseball wants to be in Nashville. We know that. But we also know baseball needs 2 more teams, okay? They don't want to take a team out of Chicago. The Chicago White Sox, I can make fun of all I want. They draw when they're good, all right? They just haven't made an effort to be good in a few years. And I don't think that Major League Baseball wants to lose their second team in Chicago, because if they come to Nashville, then they got to find 2 new homes for 2 new teams. So I genuinely think that they would still like Nashville to be an expansion city. And I don't think they want to lose 2 teams from Chicago. That would be my thought.
So when it comes to the White Sox and how they've played footsie with Nashville for the last couple of years, to your point about the way Reinsdorf has done things in the past, I've ignored it. But I do wonder this, which is, do you think there's an appetite? Because there was not much of an appetite. I believe it was 92, maybe, when Reinsdorf leveraged Tampa in order to get the new Comiskey Park built. There really wasn't a huge appetite then, and somehow, some way, Reinsdorf found a way. Now, again, the cost of stadiums has gone up. The public's excitement to spend for stadiums, I think, has gone down. And not only that, the White Sox freaking stink, Corey. So is there an appetite there for Jerry Reinsdorf to get what he wants by holding the city of Chicago responsible?
I think that there's a lot less likelihood than there was before that Chicago would simply just give in to him, because they've been through it before with him, and they know how he plays the game. And so, maybe he is willing, maybe Major League Baseball is willing to allow him to move. Maybe that does all happen, because I agree with you. I don't think that Chicago, because look, the Bears are much more important to Chicago than the White Sox are. And so the Bears are their first priority right now. And so they are, going to have to work on a deal. But, you brought up the appetite for paying for stadiums. What have we seen more and more of with stadiums? Owners paying for them themselves, or paying a large portion of it themselves. And, Jerry Reinsdorf has been a guy who's just wanted stuff built for him. And, I don't think that is necessarily going to fly. So this guy becoming the majority owner, it's interesting to me what Major League Baseball wants out of this thing, because we know they want to be here, and they know they've got to find an owner to fit the bill for a team here. So, maybe they skip step 1 in Chicago and just go straight to step 2 in Nashville. But I don't think that's the preferred route. I think the preferred route would be to have a good owner with a good ballpark in Chicago.
Corey Curtis, News 2 here on our program. Let's say Justin Ishbia picked up the phone and called you and said, Corey, you're from Chicago, so you know the lay of the land. I am thinking about bringing this team to Nashville. What do you think then? What would your reaction be?
I would say, I would say good for you. I mean, if that's what he wants to do, he's the billionaire.
Well, I'm talking about, like, do you think that this would be something that would work? Where would you put the team? What would your advice be?
Well, look, like I've always thought 2025 was my year where I thought Nashville would be ready. And I think, we've got the money, we've got the people. Because, how many fans a game do you need to average in Major League Baseball? Like between 10 and 20,000?
I'm going to tell you right now, I haven't looked it up. There's a chance the Sounds may average more than the White Sox right now. I'm not kidding when I say that.
I think that is very likely. That is probably very likely. The Sounds have drawn so well that I think it would be easy for a Major League. Look, the first couple of years you're going to draw, but we've got a ton of people. We've got a ton of areas that have grown. I think the big thing is, where do you want to put the ballpark? Do you want to do it like the Braves and put it in Williamson County? Where you're going to have a lot of your season ticket holders. Do you want to put it as an anchor in a part of Nashville? Because I don't think the current mayor has an appetite to help anybody build a baseball stadium in Nashville. If somebody wants to build one in Nashville, they're going to have to flip most of the bill, themselves. So I wouldn't say it's outside the realm of possibility to see if a baseball team comes here, to see it in a Williamson County or a Wilson County or something like that.
Okay, with that being said, do you I do want to hit a couple just a couple bullet points here. Do you think the Predators should fire Andrew Burnett and hire Peter DeBoer now that Peter DeBoer has been fired in Dallas?
You know what? Barry Trotz believes in Andrew Burnett, and if that's what he believes, he needs to stick to his guns. But I heard some of what you were saying. Look, I don't disagree with you. Just because you've got a coach doesn't mean you can't go get a better one. And Andrew Burnett has won games before, so let's not pretend like he doesn't know what he's doing. Last year was bad. There is no question about it. But Peter DeBoer's won a ton of games. And if you wanted to make that move, I don't know how anybody could argue with it. I really don't. The guy got fired for going to the Western Conference Finals, just like Tom Thibodeau in New York in the NBA. I don't understand that, really. It's not like these guys had teams that were just, you're so much better than Edmonton. How dare you lose? Edmonton played for the Cup last year.
You don't understand, though, why they fired DeBoer. I know why they fired him. They fired him because he and the goalie got into it.
Well, so you picked the goalie over him.
They signed the goalie to an 8-year contract.
Okay. Well, you know what? They could be adults and work it out. The Titans had that situation.
That is true.
And they traded the wide receiver, and the GM ended up losing his job. So if they hire John Hines and replace him, with John Hines, the GM could be out of a job as well.
Doesn't it just feel like doing this, firing the coach to get DeBoer, would be just so un-Predator-like, though? Like, that's the thing
absolutely.
I can't get over, is that this is so anti their DNA.
Well, I don't think anybody in Nashville has that DNA, really, to go out and fire. There's a lot of loyalty largely in this town. And I know you could say, well, they only gave Rand Carthon. The Carthon thing was an anomaly from what we're used to seeing here. We're used to seeing people get over the top chances. So yes. And remember, Barry was a coach, so he's almost always going to side with the coach. And that's what we're seeing here. So, I think just think about how upset Barry was in Washington with how he was treated. Do you think he's capable of treating Andrew Burnett like this to fire him to get Peter DeBoer? I don't think that's inside of who Barry Trotz is.
He left John Hines out there hanging at the end of the 2022 season.
Guy. He wasn't his guy. He didn't hire him, and he wasn't his first player. So I think those two things are completely different. And also, if this had happened at the end of the season, before he, had made a decision or whatever, he could have done it. But to do it after he announced he's coming back, that's a totally different deal.
Corey Curtis, News 2's our guest here on the program. Fireball Hot Take Friday. What's your hot take this week?
I just pulled up on my Google machine that the last time the Green Bay Packers won the Super Bowl, and we're in the Super Bowl, was 2011. So that was 13 seasons ago. Is my math correct?
Yes.
They had some really good teams in Green Bay. Yet we're still pretending like Aaron Rodgers is a difference maker. Okay, well, I'm not going to say us. You and I are probably going to be like, who cares? But I'm sure ESPN is going to cram it down our throats with the Steelers. No, they've got Aaron Rodgers. Look, Vegas numbers barely ticked when Aaron Rodgers' announcement came that he's going to the Steelers. I'm sure the anticipation was already that he was going to be there anyway, but he doesn't change the balance of power in the AFC North one iota because, frankly, he's the third best quarterback in that division.
Here's what I'll say about that. He gives them a better chance to win than Mason Rudolph or Russell Wilson.
Well,
Other
sure
than
does,
that,
he doesn't give them a chance to achieve anything big, though.
The other thing is what's hilarious to your point is the Vegas numbers, all the books didn't move yesterday. And I pulled up the Steelers schedule just wondering like, oh, now that it's official that Aaron's there, would they move games around or whatever? They already have the Packer game scheduled for Sunday Night Football. Like that told me all I needed to know, which is the league knew. Like the league knew they had Pittsburgh and Green Bay on Sunday night.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that was the other one. Pittsburgh and Green Bay is already on Sunday night as well. That's why I said the league knew that this was going to happen. But I think the league also knows it doesn't really make a difference. And that's why I'm surprised. And you're right. I mean, he is an upgrade over what they've got, but he is also a culture killer. And Mike Tomlin, who's an exceptional head coach, has had guys who've been problems before. And signing up for another one is amazing. I'm just anxious to see if he goes to Egypt next week when they're in minicamp.
Corey Curtis, News 2, as always, joining us on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Corey, great stuff. Enjoy the weekend. We'll talk soon.
Thanks.
All right, a lot of you want to get your phones in on this baseball thing. Again, Justin Ishbia, a minority owner of Nashville SC. Again, this dude's got money. Went to Vanderbilt Law School. He is going to buy the Chicago White Sox as of right now. So let's get your phones in on this next. 615-737-1025. A lot of people want to weigh in, so that's what we'll do. Plus, the one thing I have told people, like I have told a lot of people connected with Major League Baseball, that I have talked to people on the city council here in Nashville. I talked to a lot of city councilmen and women as the Titans stadium deal was getting done. And I can tell you, they do not have any interest in spending $1 on a baseball stadium. And there's one thing, though, that I think we could perhaps see, which I want to get to, and we'll do that next. Also, the good guys, Louisville, up right now 4-1 in the Super Regional. Reed, you will never guess. Today with Caroline, when North Carolina was beating the crap out of Arizona, I was on the college sports radio set just going, ACC, ACC, ACC. It feels nice to be able to celebrate.
Enjoy while it lasts.
That's the truth. 615-737-1025. Stillman & Company, 1025. What is the game? That was Doggy on the program at the Super Bowl saying there will be a major league team in Nashville in 10 years. Again, the big news, Justin Ishbia, whose brother Matt Ishbia owns the Phoenix Suns. Justin Ishbia buying a stake in the White Sox with the ability by 2034 to be able to buy the whole Megillah and be able, I guess, to do whatever with the White Sox. And Nashville has been the leverage piece for Jerry Reinsdorf, the owner of the White Sox, to try to get a new stadium, and so far to no avail. Now, again, Dog has said, I think it's going to be expansion. Corey Curtis in the last segment said, I think it's going to be expansion. But let me say this. I would love to know what the real appetite in Chicago to build Jerry Reinsdorf a new stadium actually is. I don't think, I could be wrong about this, I don't think Jerry Reinsdorf, he is notoriously cheap. I do not think Jerry Reinsdorf is going to work out a deal with Chicago where he has to foot part of the bill. That's just not his MO. That's not what happened with the Chicago Stadium when they moved on to the United Center for the Chicago Bulls. That's not what happened with the first Comiskey Park. Well, I guess technically the second Comiskey Park. That's just not what he does. But I do think there's something to, hey, they definitely, if Dog's saying they don't want to move a team out of Tampa, they definitely probably don't want to move a team out of Chicago. Now, here's the other thing. When the Titans built their stadium, I said, I am going to try to be as honest with you all as possible about this stadium. I didn't feel like I did that when Nashville SC got their stadium and got the franchise. I thought I was just too gung-ho saying, bring the team, bring the team, bring the team. And so with the new Titan Stadium, I was going to be as honest as possible. I was going to talk to as many people. I was going to talk to the detractors. I was going to talk to the people that wanted the stadium. I talked to the Titans. I talked to the mayor at the time. I talked to the Metro Council members. I talked to everybody. And I kept telling people at baseball, I told Mad Dog this. I said, there is not a desire in this city to spend $1 on a baseball stadium. Not $1, maybe not even 1 cent. But the one thing that I wouldn't rule out, and again, Justin Ishbia is a part owner, a minority owner in Nashville SC. What I would not rule out is what Nashville SC did, which is a land swap. Basically, to dumb it down for everybody out there, because I needed it dumbed down for me, they took the parcels at the fairgrounds and they basically just gave it to Nashville SC. John Cooper was the Metro Council member at large at the time. He was furious, just furious with the idea of Metro giving land so that John Ingram could build a soccer stadium that he would pay for, but also build other things around there. Restaurants, hotels, condos, shopping, etc. And so could this be a situation where we're not going to build you the stadium? And I don't know how much money Justin Ishbia and the Ishbia family, I don't know how much money they're paying in order to eventually buy the majority stake of the White Sox, but it's probably not cheap. But could this be a situation where we, the city, give them the land, and then we say, okay, it's your land now. Build your hotels, build your bars, build your restaurants, go ahead and build it. And I would not rule that out. Because I believe, and I don't want to put any words in anybody's mouth, John Cooper, former mayor, I believe he did say at one point he would not be opposed to discussing a potential land swap. I think this might have been when the Orioles were coming around that, yeah, if it's the right deal for us, we'll consider it, but that they're not going to spend any money on that. And again, the Metro Council, there is zero, and I mean zero stomach, zero, as far as them spending any money of their own money and your own taxpayer money and everything else. There is zero interest in that happening as far as I'm concerned with the people that I've talked to. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. One texter says, the other Major League Baseball owners still have to approve the sale and eventual relocation. Do you seriously believe that Major League Baseball themselves would allow the Chicago White Sox to move? I highly doubt it. Now, on one hand, I can tell you that historically, teams moving, especially where they feel like the market has sided with one team over another, has happened many a time in baseball. I mean, that's exactly why the Giants and Dodgers are in California, is because there were not enough people, they felt like, to become Brooklyn Dodger and New York Giant fans. And so they moved because too many people were Yankee fans. But again, that was 60 years ago when that all went down. So I do think Corey was saying, like, I don't think Major League Baseball wants to lose a team in Chicago. I would agree with that. The question is, does Major League Baseball or whomever owns the team, do they want to pay for the stadium in Chicago if the city of Chicago or the state of Illinois won't step up to the plate? 615-737-1025. We'll hit more of your phones. 615-737-1025. And the one thing that, again, I'm going to be totally honest with the audience about, and I'm not backtracking. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 1025-1063, The Game. Jared here for Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. My guys, have you ever called a plumber, an electrician, or an HVAC tech and felt like they were trying to sell you something that you did not need? If a deal sounds too good to be true, like a $99 club membership or a $29 tune-up, then it most likely is too good to be true. The reality is that they have to find something to fix so they can cover their costs for these discounted club memberships. Unlike other guys, Hiller never offers deals designed to trick you or sell you something that you do not need. And I know this because I use Hiller at my home. Been telling you about this for years. You all hear me talking about my friends at Hiller, how they take great care of me. And this is why I trust them in my home. So schedule online the same way I do by visiting happyhiller.com. That's happyhiller.com. There you go. That was 670 the score in Chicago. And I was listening to their breakdown yesterday after the news came out that Justin Ishbia, a minority owner in Nashville SC with a law degree from Vanderbilt, is buying the White Sox eventually one day. And I was wondering, like, are they going to, when they read this press release and they get into that, are they going to sit there and say, oh my God, they might actually move to Nashville? And the answer is no. You know, nowadays you can read the transcripts of shows. And so they're not perfect. They're AI generated, which is good enough. And so I was listening to their show, but I just was skimming through like the entire, this was Spiegel and Holmes, which is the afternoon show on 870 The Score in Chicago. And I was just skimming through the entire thing saying, okay, are they, oh, well, maybe he'll move to Nashville. Maybe he'll this, maybe he'll that. And it was like, no. And I was like, so maybe they don't think that this is affecting Nashville one way or another. Now, I believe in full transparency in terms of being honest with the audience and being fair. I truly believe it. So let me be fully transparent right now with this audience. If we were going to be getting a baseball team, let's just use the White Sox as an example. And I'm talking about a major league baseball team. As much as I rip the Titans' ass, as much as I rip the Predators' ass, I think you might see a new Jared when it comes to the baseball team. Because I would do whatever it takes to be the TV play-by-play voice of that new baseball team. You can ask our old general manager, Dennis Guazdon, because he and I used to talk. And one time I think we were sitting there and he looked at me and he goes, so what's your dream in all of this? I was like, my plan is we're going to get a baseball team one day. And when we get a baseball team, I want to be the guy saying, and welcome to Auto Parts Field, whatever, whomever. Welcome to Fireball Stadium for the best of three between the Nashville Roadrunners, the Nashville White Sox, and the New York Yankees. Hello again, everybody. I'm Jared Stillman. That is my dream. And I'll kiss whatever ass I got to kiss in order to get it. And so if you guys are like, Jared, we're in last place by 10 games. We're saying we got to fire the manager. At least maybe you'll know a little bit. Like you'll say, okay, I understand. I think I'll be able to massage it. Michael Kay in New York, he does the afternoon, or he did for a long time, the afternoon show on the ESPN station in New York. And he still calls the Yankee games on Yes. Like maybe that's an example of something I could do. I don't know. But I'm just telling you, right now, I'm all in if we get a baseball team. 615-737-1025. Matthew in Nashville says, doesn't Chicago want to keep the White Sox? They are an historic franchise. I don't know what the city of Chicago, when it comes to the White Sox, I don't know how they feel. I do think Major League Baseball wants to keep the White Sox. I mean, this is like you're talking about a team that's over 100 years old. I mean, when you go back to the old days and talk about baseball back in Charles Comiskey and Shoeless Joe Jackson and all the dudes from 8 Men Out. Again, that wasn't a very prominent moment in White Sox history, but you go back through that, like there's some real history there. And again, it's Chicago. I'm not one of these guys that's like Colin Cowherd that thinks that if we started the NFL over again, we'd put 10 teams in New York. But I do understand the idea of like, if you're a pro-American, you don't want to lose a Chicago team. This is not the same as losing a St. Louis team. You don't want to lose a Chicago team for whatever that says. One texter says, who cares? You care about baseball. We don't care about baseball. Let me say this. If we got a team, a Major League Baseball team, and our Major League Baseball team was good, people would care. I mean, people care about the Vols baseball team now, and it's because they're good. And I mean, these are people that didn't care about baseball and college baseball 3 years ago, and they care about it now. So give me a break on that front. One texter says they would never hire you for being their play-by-play voice because you could not keep your negativity down if they weren't winning the World Series every year. Now, I would hope that whomever owns the team for the new baseball team, if we get one, I would hope that they would have thick enough skin to be able to take it when somebody tells the truth. But I think I'd have to take it easy on the baseball team. I think I'd have to hire like a co-host, like a sidekick kind of cohort, and I'd have to let them, if someone's going to push back on the baseball team, it'd have to be that person. And I'd have to hire somebody, we'd have to hire somebody like that because, how often would it be, well, there's a day game and then I'm on the road, I'm traveling with the team, so-and-so is going to have to take over for me, which would happen. Neil says nobody would listen to a Jared Stillman broadcast. I disagree. I actually think I'd be pretty good. Now, most people think that they're good at things, especially things that they do not do. And I'm not one to sit here and tell you like, oh, no, I would be good. I know I'd be good. I'm not doing that. Like there are people that have podcasts that nobody listens to who are like, I could do a better job than Jared. I might do 4 hours every day talking Titan spreads in the SEC. 4 hours, not a 38-minute podcast when you feel like recording something. So I understand that. So I'm sure there are some people listening, that are like, hey, man, you're not that good. And I'm not saying I'm the best. I'm saying I think I could do it. And I want to do it. And then that way, if I was the play-by-play voice of the TV, then I'd never, ever have to worry about moving from Nashville, which I really don't want to do. 615-737-1025. By the way, Adam in Portland is mad because he said literally no one has ever called Louisville the good guys in this listening area. It's really weird. Well, the good guys are up 7-1 right now in the top of the fourth inning. There's a first for everything, Adam. I guess I'm the first guy to call him here in the listening area, and it's going to stay that way on this program. Also, Dylan in Antioch says, would I give up the radio to call Major League Baseball games? Yes, I would. Now, I'd like to do both, but I would give up. Like if it was, hey, the talk show or you calling, I'm not going to Winston-Salem to go call single A baseball to one day, 25 years down the road, be able to call Kansas City Royal games. I'm not doing that. But in order to call a Major League Baseball team in Nashville, yeah, I would. And the way I view it is like you're really only working 6 months out of the year. That's the way I view it. Oh, I work for 6 months out of the year. I spend 1 month out of the year out in Florida because we'll be at spring training. And then the rest of the year, I hang out during the winter with my son and everybody. Yeah, sold. One texter says, teams want Mike Keith as their voice. There are no team play-by-play callers who criticize the team. None. Again, Michael Kay in New York. That's the model. That would be what I would say to that. Don't we want to be like the Yankees? The key to all of this would be to whomever is the team president of the eventual baseball team one day that we hopefully get. Hopefully they like me and I like them. And then that would give me a shot.
It's funny you brought up the Yankees because someone just called and said you would be the Susan Waldman of the Nashville Major League Baseball team. I'm
not going to go there because I don't have any beef with Susan Waldman, but I would just say I'd like to be Michael Kay. Susan Waldman does radio. Not that there's anything wrong with radio. And if they were like, hey, man, we're not going to give you the TV play-by-play voice, but we'll give you the radio, of course I'd take it. But, and I've actually told Chase, I'm like, hey, the way it works in New York, WFAN makes the call on the Yankee broadcasters, which is kind of shocking because most of the time it's the team that makes the call on their broadcasters and not the radio station. But some bigger markets, the radio station makes the call. And let me just say this. If we got that worked in our deal, if we were the rights holder for the Nashville White Sox and we got to pick the talent, I mean, I'm just saying. I'm just saying. 615-737-1025 here on the program if you want to weigh in. Coming up next, the Titans have put out what I consider to be Titan porn, a propaganda state-run draft class video. And I watched the 15 minutes of it today, so you don't have to. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee, and it is a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Boy, the text line has exploded about people and their thoughts on whether or not I should be the play-by-play voice of the future Nashville Major League team that we do not have. Though, let me just say this. If it is the White Sox who move, and I am the TV play-by-play voice of that team, I am, as an homage to the great Hawk Harrelson, I am bringing back his home run call, which is, when a White Sox guy would hit a home run, he'd say, "You can put it on the board, yes." And I would bring back the strikeout, the 2-2 pitch to Johnson. He gone. So I would bring those two back, just for everybody out there wondering. Now, the Titans have put out a video. I don't know if you would say they put out a TV show, but they put out a video. It was on YouTube and Twitter, and it was like 17 minutes long, and it was called Tennessee Titans 2025, the class of the Titans. And I understand this is a new trend in the NFL, which is pumping out pure propaganda, and the Titans are no different than anybody else doing this, which is, let's take our access, which is, behind the scenes videos, and let's pump it out there for our fans to watch. So in the month of May and June, they can glaze themselves over oh man, did you see the way the coach talked to the players today? The Patriots did a show like this on Vrabel. It was an hour long. It was actually over an hour long, and it was a total Mike Vrabel circle jerk. So this isn't new, and it's not unique to the Titans. But I watched the show, and I just have to be honest with everybody. I'm not sure what people get out of this. Like, I don't, again, it's 17 minutes, and it's about the draft class. And they have sit-downs with Brian Callahan and Nick Holtz, and all the players sat down. And here's just the first example of it. Again, this rah, play like a Titan. Oh! And here's just the first example of it.
We want involving myself, get with the guys that are around, learn as much as I can mentally.
Being a physical guy, moving a guy from point A to point B against as well, it's the best part of football.
Always helping the offense move forward.
My first step is earning the respect of my teammates.
Bring those elbows back. Drive them back. Drive them back. Straight up thrust. Straight up thrust. Right to the low plane of the back. We're ready. Go! That's better.
Oh, that's it. That is a way to get it. Like, what do you get out of that? Like, what do you get out of this? These guys sitting here be like, we're tough. And that's another touchdown for Chimere DK. It's like, as a fan, and I know I haven't even looked in the usual places. I know that the people, the Bobos, are like, oh my God, did you see the video they put out? The same people that lost their crap over a 5-second video of Cam Ward throwing a ball to Xavier Restrepo 3 weeks ago are the same people that watch that. They sit down with all the rookies and they say, in 3 words, what are the ways to describe your play style? Tough, physical, fierce, competitive. We're a gritty draft group. That's what we need to be. All right, let's see. We get them hands down there. Get down there. 52 hut. Oh! Again, what do you get out of that? Well, the Titans have access that nobody else has because it's their proprietary video. Show me why you picked these guys. Show me what it was that led you to picking these guys. Everything's on tape anyways. So now we know who you're going to pick. So show me the combine meetings where Femi Oladipo just absolutely won you over. Show me the guys in the room watching the Senior Bowl video where they said, boy, I'll tell you what, look at 13 right there. Look at the way he puts his hands in on that one. You know, those are the kind of players that are athletic, that can pop around the edge, that can give us show me that. You made a trade on night 2 of the draft. You passed on Ezeraku. You passed on Eman Wari. You passed on those guys at 35 in order to move down to take Oladejo and Winston. Show me the conversation. Again, you can edit it however you want to edit it. Show me that. This video just showed me 15 minutes of, hey, is this Cam? Hey, Cam, it's Amy. How are you? I'm good, Miss Amy. How are you? I'm great. Well, I'm just ready for you to come out and be the next quarterback of the Titans. I'm really excited about that. Okay, thank you. We'll see you in a little bit. Like, that's all it was. That's all it was. And then they showed the coach talking to him, be like, all right, the important thing is the work starts now. And again, I guarantee you there are people that watch Brian Callahan in front of the team with the guy sitting in the meeting room with Brian Callahan saying, this is the NFL. The work starts now. That see this here. Ah, yeah. And again, I understand I am not the target audience for team propaganda. And I'm not even using that word in a negative connotation, propaganda, because that's what it is. It's a pep rally video, and that's fine. I get it. You want your fans to be excited, but give us some information here. Give us some behind the scenes. Give us some, show us work in the trade saying, you know, we really, really love that player, but I think if we drop down to 58, we can still get Femi. And, you know, we've got him ranked as the 23rd best player in the draft. So, I mean, I think we make the trade. What do we think? You know, show me that. That's what I wanted to see. Not, again, these guys just sitting down being like, you know, I think when you think of what kind of player I am, I think you think of a physical player. I'm sorry, outside of the kickers, are there any players that play in the NFL that don't view themselves as physical players? I mean, again, I understand that I am not, when the Titans put this video out there, that I am not the guy that they're making this video for. They're making it for the true blue Kool-Aid drinking, you know, let Rand cook crew. I get it. And I'm not that. But at the same time, like, you have the resources to really show us why you like these guys. You know, was there a moment with Cam Ward? I hear about how, oh man, Cam Ward in the meetings. Well, those meetings are on tape. So can you show me, you know, those moments where Cam Ward, you don't have to show everything. Again, you can selectively edit this stuff however you want to edit it. But instead, it's just, you know, well, here's Cam Ward trying on a helmet. Hey, Cam. Hey, Cam. Like, I don't need to see the phone call between the owner and the quarterback that everybody knew the Titans were going to select for 6 weeks before the draft. I want to see the moments behind the scenes where you decided this is the guy that we're going to stake everything on. Even if it's made up for the cameras, I'm fine with it. You know, I mean, Robert Kraft puts out videos, but you get to see behind the scenes stuff. You get to see contract negotiations. You get to see trade conversations. You get to see Elliot Wolf on the phone turning over to Vrabel and Cowden, who are sitting down there saying, like, what do you think? Do you think we should trade the pick, or do you think we should take it? Well, Houston's offered this. No, let's take Trayvon Henderson. Why can't we see any of that? It's almost like, hey, these Titan fans are so stupid that these people, we just show them something. We show them, you know, Bill Callahan in there. All right, son, get your pad level down, boy. Let's go. Let's see it. Ready, 52, hot. Oh, boom. That's what I like to see there. That's what I like to see. What do you think about that now, boy? What do you think? Like, that's what it is. Do better. Give me some information. Give me something new. Instead, again, it's, you know, how would you describe your play style? Tough, physical, hardworking, gritty. Yay. Just a little more. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number. We'll get to your phones. A lot of you guys want to weigh in on this. How many of you actually watch this? Again, I figured I'd watch it so that you people that have jobs that don't involve talking about the Titans, you don't have to watch it. And I'm telling you, like, there's really nothing special there, except unless you're one of these people that wants to see the propaganda. Now, Denard Wilson had they had an offensive meeting with Nick Holtz. They had a defensive meeting with Denard Wilson. We got to get to the Denard Wilson thing. We've got to get to this because this is probably my biggest problem with the Titans, in all seriousness. So we'll do that next. 615-737-1025. It's Stillman and Company on 1025 and 1063 The Game.
As an offensive staff, we want to congratulate you on being in this room, being in this camp. You guys all played with a lot of guys that would die to be here, right? It is a big deal. Our offensive pillars: we're going to protect the ball, protect the QB, physical run game, precision pass game. If you help us do those 4 things, you can contribute on this team. It's a 3-day job interview. How you do everything is being evaluated. From now on, the work starts.
That was Nick Holtz in the behind-the-scenes Titans draft docu show, 15-minute video. Again, it's propaganda. That's fine. Not a big deal. But I just, let's get a little behind the scenes. Instead of Nick Holtz sitting there saying like, hey, now that you're here, this is a job people would kill for. Let's go get the work done. Instead of that, can we have something that's more like, hey, again, you don't have to give me strategic stuff, but hey, when you guys wake up in the morning, our focus has to be X, Y, Z. When we do this, we have to, can we just get a little of that? And not the, corny stuff. But I have to get out to this. I've got to go over this Denard Wilson thing. So I guarantee you, again, the people that this video is intended for are going to love this stuff. They're going to go, oh, yeah. But one of my big issues with the Brian Callahan era of Titan football is that at times it feels like there's this desire to really do things that I would expect from a Pop Warner team. Things that I saw in the movie Remember the Titans. Those big speeches and dramatic, I don't want them to gain another yard. You blitz all night. You make sure they remember forever the night they played the Titans. And everyone gets all fired up. Like, that's great. That's a movie. So this was Denard Wilson. This was a behind the scenes in the video of Denard Wilson at the rookie minicamp. And this, I guess, is what he's preaching to the defensive players with a giant, PowerPoint presentation behind him while he's doing this. He wants them to play like Titans.
We talk about playing like a Titan, all right? And when we say play like a Titan, the T, and I suggest you write it down, the T in Titan means...
I suggest you write it down. I suggest you write it down. Go ahead.
We talk about playing like a Titan, all right? And when we say play like a Titan, the T, and I suggest you write it down, the T in Titan means tougher. We will play tougher for longer than our opponent. If you are not a tough guy, you do not belong on this defense.
Come on, pay attention. You only got one.
Really intelligent football players. They're tough. They play with an aggressiveness.
Hey, the second letter in there is I. It's for intelligence. How smart are you? How fast can you pick up the system? And how fast you can play?
Discipline on 3. 1, 2, 3, discipline.
The second T means for together.
Great communication.
Because a team that fails to connect is a team that fails to win.
Come back. Yeah.
The A means aggressive. We play an aggressive style of football. We defend every blade of grass. And the last thing is, we play nasty.
You want guys that I think this rookie class embodies a lot of.
We play through the echo of the whistle.
Guys that really love playing football.
We impose our will.
They love winning more than anything else.
And we make people feel who we are.
You want a bunch of guys that love to win, and they'll do whatever it takes to put themselves in that position.
Hey, how's on the field? Stop walking on my field.
That's what it means to play like a Titan.
I mean, talk about rah-rah. Like, again, I'm listening to this and I'm just expecting Denzel Washington to come out and say, don't let anything come between us. Nothing tears us apart. In Greek mythology, the Titans were greater even than the gods. They ruled their universe with absolute power. With that football field out there tonight, that's our universe. Let's rule it like Titans. Ah! I mean, my favorite thing in that is I've been making fun of this the whole day. And I've been making fun of it for 23 minutes but I've been making fun of this video. And the whole thing I keep saying every time I do that is I go, the raw. And so then Denard Wilson does this T for tough. He's like, okay, so now we're going to spell out Titan. T is for toughness. But write this down because this is very important. T is for toughness. And the first thing you hear is, ah! Can we play that beginning part again? Again, I've been this rah-rah, this, ah! Listen to the beginning of this and how they splice the audio with the, it's just so funny listening to this audio.
All right. And when we say play like a Titan, the T, and I suggest you write it down, the T in Titan means tougher.
Ah! We defend every blade of grass. Like maybe I'm different than the guys, because I'm 35 years old. I'm not coming from college. I'm not trying out on a rookie mini camp, but I mean, come on now. Like, I mean, seriously, like I'd be sitting here listening and being like, and a team that fails to come together is a team that does not win. Yes, Jared. How many games did you win last year, Coach? Well, let's not get into that. I mean, again, like Nick Saban said this to me one time, and it's really stuck with me. And he said one of the things that really bothers him about society is that oftentimes he believes people are just hired and they're just told, here you go, now go do the job. And he used the example of being on the radio, and he said, I think, they probably just say, okay, well, here, you're on the radio. Here's a microphone. Go. And he's like, that's how way too many things in life get done. And at Alabama, that's not what we do. At Alabama, what we do is we bring somebody into the organization, we set the expectations, and then we tell them, okay, we're going to give you every tool you need to succeed. And then we're going to make sure that you understand how to use those tools, and then you're going to do it. Nick Saban gets on the coaches during the meetings in the morning before the players even show up saying, does anybody not understand? Because I am telling you what I want you to tell the players. So when we get out on the practice field, we're not wasting any time on the practice field. Everybody knows what they're supposed to do. That's a lot different than the A stands for aggressive. I mean, like when we hired Caroline, and I wasn't Caroline's supervisor, but I mean, Caroline was working on my show. And when we hired Caroline, I really focused on making sure this was the first time I had ever been in this kind of position that I'm like, I want to outline expectations. It wasn't we're going to be tougher. It was more like hey, if I have a problem with something, I'm going to address it with you. And I don't want you to be upset about it. Just know I'm trying to get to the crux of it. I want to get through to it. And then we move on. Reed, we had similar conversations about that when you got hired. It was like, hey, this is I can be kind of an a-hole sometimes. I want things done a certain way. But these are the expectations. And if you have any questions, let me know and let's go forward with it. And not, again, we're going to be a tougher radio show, David Reed.
That's exactly why you told me. You spelled out Stillman. You said the T is for toughness. And if you're not tough enough, you don't need to be here.
What's the S for?
You don't want to know. We can't say that on the radio.
Okay. Again, just somebody into the text line says, you lack a competitive bone in your body. You're reaching. God forbid he have his own way of motivating his team. Have you seen the Lions coach? I mean, the Lions coach, that behind the scenes stuff, I watched Hard Knocks when he did it. That stuff was getting through to the player. That stuff was more just corny. That's what this is corny. Dan Campbell's in tears, I love you, brothers, and I'll do whatever it takes for you. And if you've got a problem, you come see me, you this, you that's the behind the scenes stuff I want to see. Not, again, T stands for thorough. I stands for individual. T stands for toboggan, which we will wear on our head when it is cold outside. A stands for ass, which we get kicked on Sunday. N stands for night games that we do not play. And S, like David Reed said, we don't want to say that word on the air.
Maybe someone leaked this video to Jeffrey Simmons, and that's why he's not here. He's like, I'm not any of those things. I'm not tough. I'm not
you know what? That's fair.
I don't want to play together with you guys.
Hey, I didn't think about it like that. I think that's well said. One text says, you've clearly never played football. These kind of speeches are part of every team's coaching and training. A fat middle-aged guy with man boobs who would pee his own pants if one of these guys came to him should not be making fun of solid and important parts of football. I read Bill Belichick's book. Well, read is a stretch. I listened to it on Audible. Bill Belichick does an entire chapter where he talks about the idea of the rah-rah speech is stupid. And again, Belichick's doing a lot of stupid things out there, so he's not the complete gospel in the world, but come on now. Like Belichick was like, I'm not going to say you're rah-rah at halftime. That's not what happens in real life. But it does happen on the Titans YouTube show. Ah! Hey, write this down because this is important. This is very important. Write this down. Ah! Phones 615-737-1025, Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game.
We talk about playing like a Titan, all right? And when we say play like a Titan, the T, and I suggest you write it down, the T in Titan means tougher. We will play tougher for longer than our opponent. If you are not a tough guy, you do not belong on this defense. Come on, pay attention, you only got one.
Really intelligent football players. They're tough. They play with an aggressiveness.
Hey, the second letter in there is I. It's for intelligence. How smart are you? How fast can you pick up the system? And how fast you can play? Discipline on 3. 1, 2, 3, discipline. The second T means for together. Great communication. Great communication. Because a team that fails to connect is a team that fails to win. Come back. Yeah. The A means aggressive. We play an aggressive style of football. We defend every blade of grass. And the last thing is, we play nasty.
You want guys that I think this rookie class embodies a lot of.
We play through the echo of the whistle.
Guys that really love playing football.
We impose our will.
They love winning more than anything else.
And we make people feel who we are.
You want a bunch of guys that love to win, and they'll do whatever it takes to put themselves in that position.
Stop walking on my field! That's what it means to play like a Titan.
Coming to a theater near you, Brian Callahan and Denard Wilson as Coach Boone and Coach Yost in Remember How Bad the Titans Were. I joke, I kid. One thing I did notice, though, was they had all these sit-down interviews and things. Every cut from Borgonzi and Brinker that was in this video was from their press conference. It's almost like Borgonzi and Brinker were like, yeah, no, we're not going to waste any time with this because I think this thing's stupid. At least I hope that's how it went. Again. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHoney.com. One texter says, hey, bud, I've taken a break from your show this week until now, and you're still busting on the Titans on everything they do. This time for what I thought, T-H-O-T, this time for what I thought was an enjoyable video. Your constant negativity on the team is warranted and probably keeps your listeners entertained. For me, I really can't take it. You're such a broken record of negative takes. I encourage you to mix it up. It's got to help your soul with more optimism. So I understand that, but it's not like we haven't had positive Titan discussions on the program. I mean, we had a positive Titan discussion about Cam Ward's 5 a.m. wake-up call, in which, again, I didn't get so into it saying like, oh, he must be the best quarterback in the league because he wakes up at 5 a.m., but I talked about how I enjoyed the fact that it's everybody else around Cam Ward that highlights how hard Cam Ward works, and Cam Ward just goes to work. Is that not positivity? And when I read text like that, I'm like, are you really saying, hey, it might be nice if you put in some positivity? Or are you really saying, like, I want you to be positive all the time because I want to pretend that my team is going to be good this year? Because I cannot do that. I cannot pretend for you that the Titans are going to be good. Mike from Shelbyville says, is Denard Wilson aware that intelligence is a noun and the rest of the acronym are adjectives? I never thought about it like that. So if I didn't think about it, I'm going to assume Denard Wilson probably didn't think about it. For whatever that's worth. That one, I'm not going to throw the Titans under the bus. This is my favorite text. One texter says, this team is a sleepover at the facility away from me finding a new team to root for until Brian Callahan is gone. I got to tell you, I like Brian Callahan. I say this every time, and then it's almost like I say this. It's like saying with all due respect, but it's really not with respect. And I do like Brian Callahan. I do. But some of this stuff is just so hokey. Like some of it is just so Pop Warner that I'm like, dude, can we actually watch game film and not Barney around the facility? And the moment that it first kind of hit me was last year after the Jets game. Levis rolls the ball on the ground a week after he pissed the game away against the Bears. And Brian Callahan on the cameras is shown screaming at Levis. And John Glennon asked the question in the press conference on the Monday after the Jet game, John Glennon asked the question of, do you now think that as a coach, that as the head coach, you've got to be more aware of the cameras when you yell at someone? He's like, yeah, and I really hate that got picked up by the cameras. And I remember sitting there thinking, you hate that it got picked up? And Kaharski, to his credit, was like, why? Why did you hate that? And Callahan was like, well, because I didn't want people to see that. I coach Will hard, but I also love him hard. And I thought, really? Like, this is a multi-billion-dollar business. These are jobs. You get hired to get fired. Like, you got to win. I mean, I get why he cursed out Levis on the field. I mean, I was kind of glad he did it. And then he's just sitting there like being like, yeah, I wish the cameras didn't see me say the F word to Will Levis. And it's like, dude, not everything. This is not Little League and T-ball where we're not even allowed to say if a team wins or not. One texter says, Denard Wilson told them to write this down because they didn't know how to spell Titans last year, and he gave the same speech, but they stunk because apparently they forgot to write it down. That's my favorite part. Hey, write this down. Hey, this is important now. Write this down. One texter says, do you prefer us sounding like the Jaguars' corny GM? I prefer none of it. I prefer just like, hey, here are the expectations if you want to see. I think Cam's like that. Like Cam, I don't know Cam, but I just get the sense that he's a straight shooter. He doesn't worry about making everybody feel happy all the time. He just tells everybody exactly what he thinks they need to know in that given moment. And that I like. And that is efficient. That is what I appreciate. Let's go to Mitch, who's up next here on our program. Mitch, thank you for calling and waiting. Go ahead.
Jared, I don't understand the frustration. They are just trying to be champions at life, and let's let them do it, please.
And you know what? I'm glad you brought that up. That is very Butch Jones. And again, it's like, I'll never forget. And this, you know what? That's a great call. How long was that call on the air for, Reed? 5 seconds? 10 seconds? How long was that call?
No, 3, maybe 4.
That was a great call. Because one of my biggest problems with the Callahan administration has been how Butch Jonesian at times it feels like. And I will never forget when Tennessee got beat by A&M. This, I think, was 2016. And Tennessee lost in overtime. They were both top 10 teams. They were both undefeated. I think they were both like 5-0 at the time. It was CBS. And Tennessee went on the road to A&M, fumbled the football like 6 times and lost the game. And they lost it in overtime. And Butch Jones said after the game, well, I mean, that's the number 8 team in the country, and we turned the ball over 5 times, so imagine if we didn't turn it over 5 times. And I'm like, dude, you did turn it over 5 times. That's the problem. Not imagine what would have happened if we hadn't turned it over. No. You did turn it over 5 times. We don't need to take a positive out of everything. And I'll never forget when Butch was kind of on that run of polishing turds. It was during a commercial break. And Floyd was looking out the window at the studio. And I said to him, I go, Floyd, if you were GM, do you think you could hire Butch Jones? And he just stares out the window and goes, Butch isn't really my kind of guy. And that was all I needed to hear. And when it comes to some of this stuff with Callahan and his group, it feels very Butch Jonesian. And that's the most compact and honest way I can give it to you. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number on the program. We have to get to the single worst take I have ever heard on this radio station. And it came out of the mouth of Joe Rexrode when I was on this morning at 7 o'clock. We have not touched on this today because we've had a lot of stuff to get to, but we got to talk about this, and so we will. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. I am going. I want you to give me a statement as to why you think basketball is a good product right now. The NBA, the current NBA game, give me a statement. Robbie, do you want to guess why I'm asking Joe to give me a statement here?
I'm sure you're going to play it later.
Yeah,
I'm going to have Ian cut it, and we're going to play it. So, Joe,
we've already talked
defend
about it.
the NBA. Go.
Hey, Jared, shut up. Thanks. We've already talked about it. LD from McMinnville says, please ask Jared about his comparison to Cam Ward. Maybe we should talk about your hard work, Jared. How about that? Why don't you cut that
So
out?
you don't want to defend the
I've
NBA.
already talked about it. Go back and listen.
Well, the people in the car
jackass.
right now weren't the people that were in the car at 6:20, so they want to know right now. You bury your defense of the NBA in comparison to what the NBA used to be, which the NBA used to be great, and now the NBA, hate to say it, kind of stinks. And you bury it at 6 o'clock, and now you will not defend it today.
I mean, you are seriously like a carnival barker. I don't even know. What are you talking about? You don't dictate what I say on my show, and I've already talked about it. And it's a great product. I don't have to say anything else. It's a great product.
What makes it a great product, Joe?
Great players, great teams, different styles of play. There's way more variance in how teams defend teams now. There's different styles of play. It's the highest talent level it's ever been. The teams now would destroy the teams that I loved from my youth. Destroy them.
That was Joe Rexrode this morning. This morning on Robbie and Rexrode, I went on the program, and Joe Rexrode made the comment that basketball nowadays is better than basketball used to be. And I could not believe myself when Joe Rexrode said that. Could not believe it when he said that. I'm like, look, the NBA Finals last night, mildly entertaining. You know, I kind of kept one eye on it, one eye off. I wasn't all in on it or whatever. But I have talked, TD and I were sitting up at the Sounds press box yesterday talking about, man, remember when Kobe used to play Sacramento and just those used to be wars, and Portland versus the Lakers and the Bulls and the Knicks and we were talking about that, like, man, remember when? And Joe Rexrode today, with a straight face, said that the NBA is a better product in basketball right now than it used to be. And I couldn't believe it. I don't usually look at the text line when I go on Robbie and Rexrode, but I had to pull it up this morning because I was like, I got to know. I got to know what the text line is saying. And the text line was basically like, Joe, I never agree with Jared on anything, but this is ridiculous. The idea that the NBA is better now than the NBA used to be. And then last night, or earlier, he was talking about, Jordan would still be good today, but he wouldn't be Michael Jordan today. I don't know, man. Michael Jordan played 82 games and dropped 30 points a game for 82 games, then would play an entire playoffs, drop 35 points, win the championship, and do the same thing a year later. And after the 1992 title, he went to Barcelona, did it in the Olympics, and then came back and did it again in 1993. You're telling me that the guys today that have to load manage their way through a season would have been able to play the game like Michael Jordan? Give me a break. And I have to ask, you tell me what's better. Last night's NBA Finals game, which was a good NBA Finals game. And I like this Tyrese Halliburton because I like the fact that all the players came out, the entitled NBA players came out and said he was the most overrated player, and he has done nothing but shove his foot up the entire NBA's Eastern Conference, and now the best team in the league, OKC, just put his foot up their rear ends this entire playoffs, which I appreciate. But you tell me what's better. Last night's game or Kobe and Shaq? Last night's game or Michael Jordan and the Bulls? Last night's game or LeBron in Miami versus Tim Duncan and the San Antonio Spurs? NBC has acquired half of TNT's package, which means that every other year NBC will get a conference final. The NBA finals will not be on NBC. And in the other years, it'll be on Amazon. They'll get some games of the week, Sunday night basketball. They'll put games on Peacock. And yet, they are bringing everything back from the 90s. They have hired Michael Jordan as a contributor, which I can promise you was not cheap. They have brought back the old NBA on NBC music, which if you know that round ball rock, you hear that and you just think about Michael Jordan dominating somebody. And then I think of Marv Albert, sitting there talking about with the czar of the telestrator, Mike Fratello. I mean, it just brings me back to the days of the O.J. Simpson Bronco chase, just when basketball used to be pure and competitive and it was physical and there were good players and it wasn't just shooting a bunch of threes all the time. And instead, Joe Rexrode's trying to tell me that this league where Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and Jason Tatum are running the show is a better product than Larry Bird. Joe is trying to say that. You want to know why NBC is bringing back every element? The voice of NBC, like the guy that would bring you into the game. They would play that beautiful John Tesh NBA on NBC theme. And then there would be this voice. Tonight, it's Game 4 of the NBA on NBC with the Chicago Bulls and the Miami Heat. That guy passed away 8 years ago, and they are going to use AI for his voice. They've cleared it with the family. They are going to use AI so that next year when the NBA is on NBC, you'll get the same. It's the NBA on NBC. Tonight, it's Game 3 of the Eastern Conference Finals between the Indiana Pacers and the New York Knicks. Again, that guy died. Thank you. And they're putting it in there because they want to tug on all of our heartstrings from when basketball was great. And basketball stinks now. And I know it's not me. And I know it's not you. And I know because we all still love college basketball. It's the players. It's the game. It's boring. And instead, Joe's trying to tell me that, oh, no. This day, these guys are better than Magic Johnson. Give me a break. The 90s Bulls would crush these two teams playing right now. I mean, they would have to take an extra day off. You know how they get a day off in between games? They'd have to take an extra day off if they were playing the 90s Bulls because Dennis Rodman and Horace Grant or Scottie Pippen would rough them up so bad on the defensive end. And don't tell me that these guys, now Halliburton's got some killer instinct in him for sure, but don't tell me these guys have Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan's mentality. Giannis won a title. Then what? Nothing. Anthony Edwards folded in the Western Conference Final. Luka can't get his big tush in shape. But yeah, these guys are better than Jordan and Kobe. Give me a break. 615-737-1025. Chad Withrow joins us next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 of the game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. It is 5 o'clock, which means we are joined by Chad Withrow from Outkick, presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee, your bank for small business. So, again, I saw the Titans were teasing, our draft YouTube video. You've got to see it. So I woke up the day and I watched it, and I did not think I would crap on it. I was actually excited to see, let's see if there's some behind-the-scenes stuff where they show us meetings with Cam Ward at the Combine when he won him over, or show us, the discussion about trading out of the 35th pick. Instead, it was a pep rally. This was the Denard Wilson cut that, we've played a couple times today.
We talk about playing like a Titan, all right? And when we say play like a Titan, the T, and I suggest you write it down, the T in Titan means tougher. We will play tougher for longer than our opponent. If you are not a tough guy, you do not belong on this defense.
Come on, pay attention. You only got one.
Really intelligent football players. They're tough. They play with an aggressiveness.
The second letter in there is I. It's for intelligence. How smart are you? How fast can you pick up the system? And how fast you can play?
Discipline on three. 1, 2, 3, discipline.
The second T means for together.
Great communication.
Because a team that fails to connect is a team that fails to win.
Come back. Yeah.
The A means aggressive. We play an aggressive style of football. We defend every blade of grass. And the last thing is, we play nasty.
You want guys that I think this rookie class embodies a lot of.
We play through the echo of the whistle.
Guys that really love playing football.
We impose our will.
They love winning more than anything else.
And we make people feel who we are.
You want a bunch of guys that love to win, and they'll do whatever it takes to put themselves in that position.
Stop walking on my field.
That's what it means to play like a Titan.
Give me a T. Give me an I. That's what it feels like. And I'm getting to the point, Chad Withrow with us now, where the more I see the Titans put out, and I understand there are things underneath the hood that they don't want us to see, that we're not going to get to see, the more I feel like this really is a Pop Warner operation. That the Titans have gone from, hey, we're run like an actual football team, to, hey, give me a T, give me an I, give me a... When you see the team-branded propaganda stuff doing things like that, where Denard Wilson is talking to players, and that is what's going on in the meeting rooms. When we hear about Brian Callahan's 8-team competition during the offseason to have Jeffrey Simmons not show up, can we deduce from this that, you know what? Brian Callahan and the Titans are just soft, Chad.
Y'all better write this down. Needs to be a drop that Reed has put in the system immediately, and I'm sure that he's already working on it. If I know Reed, because it's hilarious every time I hear it. Y'all need to write this down. Y'all better write
this down. This is important.
It's important. It's great. I love it. That needs to be placed on the end of every big point that you make. I mean, it's what every team does to an extent, right? Like there's someone that's in charge of marketing and getting the fan base hyped up and doing all of this. If the Titans weren't 3-14, it wouldn't be ridiculous. And people would be like, man, I'm excited. This 9-8 team is coming back, and they showed some real promise, and Levis this and Brian Callahan that, and they'd be feeling okay about it. But because the team is 3-14, yeah, it comes across as ridiculous when you know the circumstances surrounding this team going into a year with the number 1 overall pick at quarterback in Cam Ward. And all of the focus just needs to be on Cam Ward and not, silly propaganda. But I'm also not going to sit here and fault an organization that at times I don't think has done enough to try to connect with fans or to truly connect with fans, or at least making the effort to connect with fans, because that's all this is. If you want to say it's silly, I'll probably agree with you. I think it's silly to hear some of this stuff from a team that's terrible and just went 3-14. But I don't think it has much bearing on Brian Callahan as a coach or the organization he's running. I think more importantly, it's the kumbaya stuff that was put into the team this past offseason that I think makes it look a little bit, and I heard your discussion earlier, Jared, I think it's a great comp from the caller. It's butchish. It strikes me as Butch Jones-like. It's gimmicky. It's what Josh Heupel did to Tennessee, which people like more than anything. Of course, he won, which people love more than anything that root for the team. Is he's not a gimmick guy, right? He's not even a great talker. He's just a football guy. He comes in, he's no nonsense. His offense does what it does, and they've won a lot of games, and people appreciate that even more coming off of Butch Jones, which was the exact opposite of that. Mike Elko at Texas A&M is a no-nonsense guy who's not going to talk in all of these different phrases and analogies and everything else and pep rally talk type stuff that you're getting with that video. So, yeah, look, I think it's an effort to connect with the fans that is not going to really connect simply because the team was 3-14.
So along those lines, I agree. Every single team is now putting out their own propaganda. They're all putting out their own behind-the-scenes stuff, and I don't have a problem with it. But for instance, the Patriots had one where we saw them in the draft room discussing, do we want to trade the pick with Houston or do we want to take Trayvon Henderson? The Titans didn't do any of that. It's literally all of this, again, this spelling out Titan. And with all these different things that they do, whether it's their offseason program, whether it's Jeffrey Simmons throwing a punch in practice and not getting kicked out, whether it's time and time again last year asking Brian Callahan, why are you not firing Colt Anderson? The more, I guess, I have a hard time. Like, this is how you present yourself, and you present yourself as an organization and as a coaching staff leading this as a soft coaching staff, as a get out the orange slices and Capri Sun coaching staff. And at what point do I have to say, you know what, that's who they are? Not, no, you really don't see them behind closed doors.
Yeah, and I don't like, the one thing that I liked the most about last season was the on-camera tirade from Brian Callahan when Will Levis screwed up that Jets game. I was like, okay, all right, this is the guy with some fire. I really like this. And then he sort of walked it all back, which I didn't love. And I know coaches and organizations always try to keep things a big mystery and be as boring as possible. And boy, I don't like when that type of stuff is shown on TV, but I loved it. And I think most fans probably loved it, unless you're just the biggest Will Levis homer Kentucky fan on the planet and didn't like seeing your guy get embarrassed because he embarrassed himself. Then I think you love that as a Titans fan. I love to see that passion and that emotion and that bit of alpha come out of Brian Callahan. I don't think we've seen it since, and we certainly didn't see it when he walked it back after that game. I want to see a little bit more of that because there is a dogged competitor inside of Brian Callahan. There's no doubt about it, and I don't think we've seen enough of that. Here's what I think would really relate to fans of the Titans. I'd love to see them on Hard Knocks one time. I'd love to see that sort of behind-the-scenes access. Now, maybe they don't want to be on there because deep down they know they're not going to be very likable and get people excited if they went behind the scenes of their organization, or maybe they show the organization and the coaches and Mike Borgonzi and the players and fans really like it, and they find a way to connect with them even more and appreciate what they're doing more. So that's one that, you're only going to get with an outside lens. And even and I saw the Patriots piece you're talking about. I loved it, but typically when everything is kept in house, it's going to be cheesy, and that's what we've seen is a lot of cheese from the Titans.
On the Jeffrey Simmons front, he doesn't show up for OTAs last week, didn't show up for OTAs this week. Brian Callahan has defended him ad nauseum. Tracy Rocker said, he's not here for practice, but he is here, but he'll be ready to go. He's a foundation piece for our team. Meanwhile, at the same time, Callahan's trying to pump up how important these competitions in the offseason amongst the team are going to be for leadership development and to keep them from making mistakes during the games during the year. It sounds like a bunch of hogwash to me. What do you make of it? And what do you make of Simmons basically saying, I'm good, I don't need the offseason program?
He can't be a captain. He can't be referred to as a leader on this team ever again. And if Brian Callahan does that, he's going to undercut himself and undermine everything he is saying. And that's where it's not just a slow erosion, but a very quick erosion with your team starts to come into place. Jeffrey Simmons is a very good player. He's not a great player. He's not worthy of the accolades the Titans pile on him either. Now, he's also one of the few really good players on this roster right now that we know of. So everyone should understand that, but also understand that when they come in and call him a leader, I'm not buying it. And I don't think anyone else should either. And I think what he's missing right now is showing more and more that he's not a leader on this team. And I don't want to hear that from Brian Callahan about his leadership qualities and how we're relying on him for that. No, he's a really good player on your team that you pay to play the position. That's who he is. As long as you're paying him handsomely to play that spot, he needs to be there and produce. Leaders show up when they need to show up. Leaders lead, especially with this being a huge year of transition for the Titans with the number 1 overall pick and quarterback. If you're a leader, you're there. He's not, so he's not. And I don't want to hear anything different from Brian Callahan.
How big do you think it's going to be? He's going to be at the mandatory minicamp next week. He's going to get asked about his absence and why he has not been there for OTAs. I don't know what he's going to say. I have a pretty good idea of what he's going to say, but how important do you think that answer is for people to take Callahan seriously? Because Callahan and his coaching staff have been defending Simmons ad nauseum while also defending the importance of their offseason program. How does Simmons handle this correctly? And what happens if he doesn't handle this correctly?
Look, I think anything short of, family issue or something was going on I had to tend to that's very important and superseded this. There are things he could say that could shut everybody up, right? I think anything short of that, if he's vague about it, or if he's dismissive of the question, or he's got a snarky attitude about it being voluntary, or any of that, it's going to be handled poorly. Look, I think the only possible explanation is he's got something very important going on that he had to tend to, and I still don't understand why he wouldn't be telling that to the coaches and letting them understand better. But either way, it's got to be something like that. Anything short of that, I think it goes back to what I just said. It's just another illustration of a guy who's a good football player but not a leader.
Do you think that Simmons would have done this if Mike Vrabel was the coach?
No, I don't. I think also, here's what happened. I think that Jeffrey Simmons loved John Robinson. I think he loved Mike Vrabel. I think he loved Rand Carthon. And all three of those guys got fired. And he's now looking around at a Titans organization that he doesn't respect, that he doesn't appreciate, and that he doesn't really like because his guys all got fired and he's not seeing a big reason to show up. Again, not a leader for this Titans team for that reason. But I think a lot of it is that his guys are gone. So he doesn't want to be here.
Chad Withrow from Outkick with us, presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. The hot seat awaits, and we have a loaded, and I mean loaded hot seat to get to next. We will. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, Fireball Hot Take Friday. Chad Withrow from Outkick with us. Louisville, by the way, in the Super Regional. This is when Vandy should be playing. Louisville is up 8-1, and I am enjoying that. Chad Withrow with us, presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. Chad, do you have a thought, or do you want to go right to the hot seat?
Well, I noticed we weren't preempted by Vandy baseball this week, so what happened?
Well, I was 80% happy about it, that Vanderbilt forgot how to hit last weekend, and that Louisville won the regional, and 20% disappointed because as much as I do love doing this, I mean, hey, it would have been nice to have a Friday off for free. So I give that about 20%, but the ACC is just rolling along in college baseball. Number one, what are your thoughts on Justin Ishbia, the brother of Matt Ishbia, the owner of the Phoenix Suns, who holds a Vanderbilt law degree and runs a venture capital firm with offices in Chicago and Nashville, and is a minority owner of Nashville SC, buying part of the Chicago White Sox with the ability to buy the rest of it in the future from Jerry Reinsdorf?
Yeah, I think it's promising for Nashville getting the Chicago White Sox. That my first thought was exactly what yours is. Clay Travis, my buddy, is good friends with him also. And, yeah, I like the chances of that eventually happening. Now I think Nashville's getting a team regardless. Maybe 5 years from now, maybe 10 years from now. But I do think whenever expansion happens, Nashville will be one of those teams that gets a Major League Baseball team. But I do think that getting the White Sox becomes more of a possibility because of all those Nashville ties and the fact that the White Sox are really struggling in the city of Chicago, being the second team in that market. It would make a lot of sense for both sides.
Do you really think, though, baseball could move the White Sox out of Chicago?
It would not be a popular move for history, considering the long history of the White Sox in Chicago. But, yeah, I think where Nashville is trending and what's happening here, look, they're going to get a team one way or the other. Personally, as an old-time fan of the game, I'd rather the White Sox stay in Chicago and Nashville just get an expansion team, or get, the Tampa Bay Rays, which has a much shorter history in Tampa, as opposed to the White Sox. But I think of all the possible landing spots, expansion, another team moving to Nashville, what this does is up the percentage chance that an Ishbia-owned Chicago White Sox team could be an option for Nashville if they didn't get done in Chicago what they need to get done.
According to Richard Deitch, number two, Game 1 of the NBA Finals, which was a good game, had 8.9 million viewers. Only the COVID-impacted Bucks, Suns in 2021 and Heat Lakers in 2020 were lower for game number 1 of the NBA Finals. How much of a problem does the NBA have on its hands?
They got a huge problem, and we all knew it when it's Pacers and Thunder for the final. Look, the only chance they had were the Knicks and bringing in that market, and the New York Knicks. Even though the Knicks have not been relevant at all in 30 years, I mean, the mid-'90s, their last time they were truly relevant, going to NBA Finals. So it's a huge problem for the league, but I don't think it's one that snuck up on anybody. I've seen a lot of people who always defend the league or cover the league saying, well, you got superstars in this game with Halliburton and the reigning MVP and SGA, and I just, no, I'm not – I watched
not exactly Michael Jordan.
No, and I watched 30 seconds of game 1, and it was a great finish, and I've seen the highlights and everything else, but I was more into Texas versus Texas Tech softball last night and everything going on in that game than I was the NBA Finals. So, yeah, that's a problem for the NBA, and I'm someone who's a gigantic basketball fan, but I'm just not really getting into it.
Number 3, what do you make of Joe Rexrode saying that the NBA today is a better product than it was in the 90s?
Did he really say that, or are you taking that out of context?
Reed, should we play the cut for him?
Oh, absolutely. We can. Give me just 1 second.
Okay. So you decide what you make of this. This was Joe Rexrode this morning when I was on with Robbie and Rexrode. I want you to give me a statement as to why you think basketball is a good product right now. The NBA, the current NBA game, give me a statement. Robbie, do you want to guess why I'm asking Joe to give me a statement here?
I'm sure you're going to play it later.
Yeah,
I'm going to have Ian cut it, and we're going to play it. So, Joe,
we've already talked
defend
about it.
the NBA. Go.
Hey, Jared, shut up. Thanks. We've already talked about it. LD from McMinnville says, please ask Jared about his comparison to Cam Ward. Maybe we should talk about your hard work, Jared. How about that? Why don't you cut that
So
out?
you don't want to defend the
I've
NBA.
already talked about it. Go back and listen.
Well, the people in the car
jackass.
right now weren't the people that were in the car at 6:20, so they want to know right now. You bury your defense of the NBA in comparison to what the NBA used to be, which the NBA used to be great, and now the NBA, hate to say it, kind of stinks, and you bury it at 6 o'clock, and now you will not defend it today.
I mean, you are seriously like a carnival barker. Like, I don't even know. What are you talking about? You don't dictate what I say on my show, and I've already talked about it. And it's a great product. I don't have to say anything else. It's a great product.
What makes it a great product, Joe?
Great players, great teams, different styles of play. There's way more variance in how teams defend teams now. There's different styles of play. It's the highest talent level it's ever been. The teams now would destroy the teams that I love from my youth. Destroy them.
Chad, your thoughts?
First off, there's an old saying, if you're losing an argument, just change the conversation. And that seemed to me to be a classic case of that with Joe. He would not tell you what he just said in the 6 a.m. hour. He was refusing to just share his take or his opinion again on what he already shared. Is just really funny because it seems like he knows that was probably a losing argument to make. It's ridiculous to claim that the entertainment value of the NBA today is better than it was in the 90s. And America shows that with their viewing habits and what people are interested in. We're still talking about NBA in the 90s now. I just finished the Celtic City documentary Bill Simmons did for HBO. Terrific. And even the 90s Celtics that were terrible. I find myself watching the Reggie Lewis Celtics teams go up against the Bulls and the Knicks and the Pistons and thinking, man, this was a different, more hardcore game back in the day. And it was so much better. And I'm not even going to go to the 90s. Like, we can take those 90s Bulls teams. I would put them up against any team from today because they would do whatever it takes to beat one of these teams from today, and they would make it happen. 1986 Boston Celtics, the one that Bill Walton joined during that season with McHale and Bird and Dennis Johnson, that great team. I would put that team from the 80s up against teams from today. That is, I'm sorry, no. There's no universe where today's NBA is more entertaining, better, more hotly contested, any of those things, as opposed to the 90s where that sport reached the all-time high. And the biggest reason was Michael Jordan.
Number 4, what do you make of the fact that the SEC had the highest national seeds and had the preseason number 1 ranked team, Texas A&M, in baseball, and yet only had 4 teams survive to the Super Regional, while the ACC, a conference consistently crying poor, had 5?
Well, I think it shows the nature of baseball, right? I mean, like, look at right here in Nashville. I mean, how good was Tim Corbin and Vandy this year? They got eliminated by Wright State.
Yeah.
They got eliminated by Wright State, Jared.
And they really got they won the first Wright State game, but they really got their rear ends kicked by Wright State twice.
Oh my gosh, they get out in 2 games likely. Now maybe they win the loser matchup in the second game, but if the coach doesn't pull Wright State's pitcher, who's just rolling and dominating in game 1, I mean that's the nature of the sport. It's why the consistency of Tony Vitello over the last 5 years in this tournament is pretty impressive. Not one program in America has gone to more than 3 supers. They've gone to 5 straight. Now that's remarkable considering how easy it is to get bounced early and often in the sport of baseball. And kudos to the ACC. They got the job done in the tournament. I don't think it makes them a better league than the SEC. I think the SEC is still the best baseball conference. They had a bad weekend. They had a bad weekend in the NCAA tournament, and we all know how baseball works at times. It's not always the most fair in terms of crowning a champion when you're talking about a best 2 out of 3 scenario where you play so many games and so many different things happen. But that's also what makes this time of year so exciting. I'm a recent baseball convert when it comes to the college game, and this is a maddening time of year, but it's also exciting. especially when you don't have a dog in the hunt because of all the different things that can happen. We saw it this past weekend with the plight of both the SEC and how well the ACC was able to play.
What do you make of, this is the next one, the fact that college softball almost outdrew Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final? The Stanley Cup Final is on TNT, and the number for Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final was around 2.4 million viewers, whereas softball drew 2.1. I
think there is an argument to be made about popularity in women's college softball, about our attention spans as Americans and how we want shorter form sporting events on television. I find the college softball game to be very entertaining. And Jared, I think the biggest part of it is, yeah, they're playing at the top of their sport, and these are the best. There's not a real great pro women's softball league or anything. So These are some of the greatest athletes in the sport at the height of their play in the college game. So it's fun to watch that, but it's so quick. I just feel like these games fly by with 7 innings. The game is more fast paced. It's a little bit of basketball on a diamond. The bases are shorter. Everything is compact and quicker. It's enjoyable to watch. And it's not just because I'm coaching my daughter in softball. I've been watching more and more softball. We're watching all these games as a family. I love it. And I'm not watching a second of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Look, I'm not every sports fan that's out there, but I think it's awesome. And I think we're going to see more and more of that. And maybe it's a case for more sports to not be so long with their games. And maybe college softball is making that argument.
I will tell you, in all seriousness about college softball, I feel like there's a NCAA basketball feel to it where I don't have to watch an NCAA basketball game the entire year. Then the tournament happens and I can get into a game in a 5-minute period. Like, oh, it's a 1-point game with 8 minutes to go. Click. And I feel like college softball is the same way. I don't have to watch a single college softball game, but if it's on, I can watch it.
I'm with you. I watch like Instagram highlights of games throughout the year, and I won't sit down and watch, but maybe a couple of innings here and there on a weekend, and I don't have much going on during the season. But I took the fam up to Knoxville for Tennessee versus Nebraska, Game 1 of that Super Regional where Jordy Ball and Nebraska beat Tennessee. The one game they won, we went up and back and made a day of it and came back after the game that night, and it was awesome. It was a great atmosphere. I like that you said that NCAA tournament vibe. It was cooler than that because it's a host site, so it was dominated by Tennessee fans, but it's a small park. You feel like you're best friends with your neighbor when you go to a game like that. It was really neat and a great experience, and you could feel the importance of it. And that's what I like about any big event is when you go and you feel like it's important. I felt that way with that Tennessee-Nebraska game. And, of course, Tennessee got through that, and they did pretty well in the Women's College World Series. But watching those Women's College World Series games in Oklahoma City, it's fun. And this in-state matchup between Texas and Texas Tech and the fans and Patrick Mahomes and Brittany Mahomes in the house and everything else has been really cool to see.
Last one for you. Should the Atlanta Braves fire Brian Snitker?
Yeah, it's time. And I love what Brian Snitker did for the Braves. I love his service for the Braves, but it is time. It's also time to spend some money on a bullpen because, my goodness, that bullpen is atrocious. The one day that they finally get offense, they finally get that lineup clicking the way it should. They have a 10-4 lead in the ninth, and they give up 7 runs. I said then I thought that could be Brian Snitker's last game. But they had a road trip to San Francisco, so he's going to fly out there. Maybe it happens after this West Coast trip. I don't know. But, Jared, it's time, and it's time for Alex Anthopoulos to answer some questions. The Jurickson Profar deal is awful. And apparently a lot of people in San Diego knew this was coming. And the Braves didn't. So you spent a ton of money on somebody who's a problem and who hurt the team immediately. And now you've got a situation on your hands where this team isn't going to get much better. They're not going to compete for a playoff spot. So you really got to reevaluate a lot of things, the trade deadline, and figure out what you want to be moving forward. And what you want to be might be a team that trades Marcell Ozuna and Chris Sale and get the most that you can for those guys because this current team isn't going anywhere.
Woo, that's some heat on the hot seat. Chad Withrow, as always, presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. Chad, great stuff. We'll talk soon.
Jared, always a good time. It's going to be a hot weekend, so I figured I had to heat up the hot seat. And great show today. I've enjoyed listening.
Thank you. Thank you, Chad Withrow, as always. By the way, Florida State. So Louisville is up 8-1 in the super regional. That game's in a weather delay. Florida State playing Oregon State out in Corvallis. And right now, Florida State has scored in the first inning. So North Carolina wins big against Arizona. Florida State up 1-0. Louisville, Miami, they're both ACC, but they're up 8-1. Can I get a ACC? ACC. ACC. Meanwhile, speaking of baseball in Nashville, a Tennessee State representative has replied to my tweet about getting a team. We'll hit on that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. Mad Dog Russo with us. Do we have a chance to steal the Rays? It sounds like the stadium deal for the umpteenth time in Tampa has fallen apart. Nashville is the East Coast city team's leverage to get new stadiums built.
Nashville's going to get
Do
a
we have a
baseball team.
shot?
Nashville and Salt Lake City are going to get the expansion teams because they are not going to get the Rays. You guys are going to get an expansion. Before Manfred retires, Salt Lake City in the West, in the American, whatever division they put them in,
sure,
and Nashville in the East. Those are going to be the two expansion cities. That's me. Going to be the two expansion cities. I don't know what they're going to do with the Rays, but I don't think they're going to save Nashville for a expansion, which is better for you anyway. You'd rather have the
Why?
expansion team.
I'd rather have the Rays because then you get the Yankees and the Red Sox X amount of times per
But you're going to
year.
get them anyway because they're going to be in the American League and it's a balanced schedule.
I know, but you still get like 13 or whatever it is against the division teams.
You get the two series. Yeah.
I just think about how exciting it'll be. You've done this in your career, but how exciting it'll be to be on the radio in June
with the baseball team.
with the Yankees coming to
And
town
the
for
Red Sox.
3, and we're 2 games out of
I get it.
first, and I get all giddy.
I don't think you're going to get Tampa, but I do think you're going to get an expansion team. I think Manfred is committed. I know there's an issue with Pinellas County. The Hurricanes hurt that whole situation. Who knows what they're going to do with the new stadium? But Manfred is committed. That's a big market. He is. I don't think after the A's leave, he wants another team to leave. So I think he's committed to trying to make that work. But I do think Nashville will be first in line to get an expansion. There will be baseball in Nashville by the end of this decade. How's that?
That was Mad Dog Russo on our show at the Super Bowl. So again, the big news, Justin Ishbia, his brother Matt Ishbia owns the Phoenix Suns. Justin Ishbia has made an agreement to buy the Chicago White Sox eventually completely. So he's going to buy part of the ownership from Jerry Reinsdorf now, and then by, I believe it is 2030, he'll be able, or 2033, 2034, he'll be able to buy the whole team from Jerry Reinsdorf, who has just tried tooth and nail to get a stadium done in Chicago. Not only that, there was a plot of land that the Chicago White Sox had been eyeing that Jerry Reinsdorf really wanted, and the soccer team bought it 2 days ago. And so the reason that this is such a big deal is because Justin Ishbia is a founding partner of Shore Capital, which has offices in Chicago and in Nashville. Justin Ishbia also graduated from Vanderbilt Law School and is also a minority owner in Nashville SC. So I think that for the first time in a long time, with, again, what seems like a yearly discussion about baseball in Nashville, and you heard Mad Dog say, hey, you'll have a team in 10 years. You'll have a team. With all that going on, this is the first time I've said, okay, now we know who's going to pay for it, which has always been my question. When this Nashville Stars baseball conglomerate would go around and say, we're building a team, we're going to bring a team to Nashville, I'd say, who's paying for it? Who's paying the players? Who's owning the team? Who's building the stadium? We haven't had a who. But again, I have a hard time believing that the Chicago White Sox are just going to pick up and leave Chicago, given how historic the Chicago White Sox are to the history of Major League Baseball. And I have a hard time believing that Jerry Reinsdorf at 90 years old is going to move the team. So how about this? This was a tweet from John Ray Clemens, who is a state representative for Tennessee 55. He's apparently, I guess, the chairman of the Democratic House of Members of the Tennessee General Assembly. And so he's a state representative. And he's replied to a tweet of mine about Nashville getting a team, saying another possible scenario. The Chi Sox franchise, the Chicago White Sox franchise relocates to Nashville, and Major League Baseball gives Chicago a new and replacement franchise that would keep the White Sox name. It would rid Chicago of the Jerry Reinsdorf headache, give Nashville a team, and resolve the need for one of two new franchises. That's kind of wild. But if you're just going to do that, then why not just keep the White Sox, wait until Jerry Reinsdorf is no longer amongst us, which, again, he's up there in age, and then just have him sell the team, which was his plan, I believe, the entire time anyway. Why not just do that? I mean, but if he's got to sell the team to Justin Ishbia by 2034, then wouldn't that mean that Jerry Reinsdorf's going to be eventually out of it anyway? I think I'd feel odd about getting a team that is essentially an expansion team, but is really the White Sox, while the White Sox leave Chicago for another team to be called the White Sox to go to Chicago. But again, dude's a state representative. I guess he would know more about it than me. The one thing I would say is this feels to me like there is fire to this smoke. And for years, I've heard stories and read things about Nashville and Major League Baseball and what it would mean. And I've kind of ignored a lot of it because it didn't seem to really have the fundamental nuts and bolts that would be needed in order to have a Major League Baseball team in Nashville. This one, I think there's something there. Not only that, this guy, he's got money. And in order to be able to put a baseball team in Nashville, when the city is not just willing to give away a stadium, is going to require somebody that owns the team that's got money. 615-737-1025 here on the program. Stillman and Company on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. It's 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. NFL World Championship semifinals are Thursday, June 12th in Municipal Auditorium, and you can be there. Texting the keyword match, MATCH, 615-737-1025 now to be entered to win a pair of VIP ringside tickets. Visit pflmma.com/schedule for more details. So we got to have a talk. You know, I said this yesterday on the program that I personally don't care what the ratings are of something. You know, if I want to watch it, I'll watch it. I did watch the basketball last night, but I wasn't really glued to the game. I went to sleep before it was over. I did not see the Halliburton shot until I woke up this morning. Just like the other night, I watched hockey, and then I turned it off and went to bed, and then did not see the game winner in overtime or anything like that. But have you seen some of the ratings? First of all, the NBA did not crack 9 million viewers yesterday, which is atrocious. Like, even the Arizona Diamondbacks Texas Rangers World Series cracked 9 million viewers. And that's going up against football. This did not crack 9 million viewers, which is terrible. But how about this? Game 1 of the Cup Final, because the Cup Final is now on cable on TNT this year. Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final drew 2.8 million viewers. Now, it was the most watched cable telecast of the day, which is important. But, 2.4 million viewers. 2.4 million viewers for Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final. 2.1 million for college softball. Now, we were talking to Chad Withrow about this, and the college softball is very interesting. And Texas Tech has a pitcher who is unbelievable. She makes $1 million a year being the best pitcher in college softball. But the Stanley Cup Final should not be neck and neck. Game 1, Connor McDavid should not be neck and neck with 2.42 million viewers. It should not be neck and neck with college softball. And I do wonder if the NCAA has really missed out on an opportunity, because women's basketball is getting good ratings. Baseball is starting to get some ratings. Softball is clearly getting some ratings. And we see the money that the NBA is making for TV. And the NBA TV product is horrible. And so tonight is Game 2. And I'm just going to say this for hockey and basketball. I don't know what the answer is. I don't make the kind of money that Gary Bettman and Adam Silver make. But they need to get that figured out. And they need to get that figured out and get it figured out now. So I'm just saying, when it comes to all of this, like, I will not judge something based upon what the ratings are, whether or not I'll watch it. I'll watch it if I want to watch it. But they got to do something about these ratings, because these ratings are atrocious. Also, somebody in the text line pointed out that in 2034, Jerry Reinsdorf will be 108 years old. So he probably won't be around at that point. That's it for us. We're out of here. Have a great weekend. Stay safe with bad weather coming through. Stillman and company. Good luck to Louisville this weekend. We'll see everybody Monday at 2.